They allegedly found the suspect in sitting position and choking the toddler. They intervened and took the victim and rushed him to the local clinic, where he succumbed to his injuries and was declared dead by medical services personnel. A case of murder was immediately opened, and the suspect was traced and subsequently apprehended for murder of a 3-month-old toddler. The motive behind the incident is unknown, and a 20-year-old suspect, who is a relative to the deceased, will appear before Makhado Magistrate Court soon, facing a charge of murder.
A trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of intercepted phone calls of alleged underworld figure Jerome Boyson is expected to continue in the High Court in Cape Town this morning. Boyson is accused of the 2017 murder of international drug smuggler Brian Weinstein, known as the Steroid King. Weinstein was shot and killed at his home in Constantia. The records of the calls have shown a close association between the murdered underworld figures Mark Liffman, Andre Nodia and Boyson. Boyson's legal team has objected to the admissibility of the phone records. Since the start of the trial, 5 people have already been gunned down, including Liffman, Nodia and William Stevens. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has announced they will conduct weekly physical inspections of infrastructure and service delivery challenges in the province in preparation for the G20 summit. This as South Africa prepares for the gathering of the world's major economies taking place in November. Johannesburg has been selected as the host city. However, critics have raised concerns regarding the city's readiness. Briefing the media in Midrand yesterday, Lesufi said he will be conducting these inspections with the MECs and executive mayors.
We've also resolved every Tuesday, and want to extend the invite to you, every Tuesday, myself with all the MECs, together with the executive mayors, will physically inspect infrastructure and service delivery challenges in our province as part of the preparations for the G20, which simply means every Tuesday we will walk around the entire province just to determine whether indeed we are ready.
And finally, a boat carrying more than 150 migrants has sunk over Yemen's southern coast, killing at least 68 people. Many others are still missing. Reports say the migrants were Ethiopian and the boat capsized in bad weather. The head of the International Organization for Migration in Yemen, Abdusatur Isov, has told the BBC the route was dangerous.
The coastal area of Yemen is quite vast if you look at the map. So the smugglers unfortunately use different ways of entering to Yemen. And one of those areas, that coastal area, is quite dangerous. But not only this one, but across the whole coastal area of Yemen, there are various different ways that smugglers are using to bring migrants to Yemen. And we should not forget that Yemen is a transit country for majority of those migrants that heading to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, looking for a better job.
Recapping the top story, the SACP leader Solly Mapehila has lauded the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for speaking out about crime syndicates that have allegedly captured politicians, high-ranking police officials and members of the judiciary. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Niger and Guinea both believe they will conquer the 90 minutes in the West African derby. Who will celebrate the final whistle? This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Niger versus Guinea this Monday, 4 August at 4 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path, over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken? It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
I've never felt completely comfortable with the slogan, anything a man can do, a woman can do, and even better. A woman can become anything that she determines herself to be. And I'm sure this statement has been well-intentioned and does try to mean that. However, I find that we need to be careful that we don't reinforce the notion that women are in competition with men. I don't believe that that's what true empowerment is about. To truly empower women, I think our cause would be better served if instead of using the status of men as a benchmark of what we should and can achieve, we should help women and girls focus their energy on just simply becoming better than what they were yesterday. In my opinion, men have a major role to play in supporting the empowerment of women. But unfortunately, our world is filled with women who are suffering dire effects at the cause of men. Sadly, some men also feel threatened by advances that women make. To those of you who are fathers, I want to encourage you to be a committed and loving father. Most of the most influential women leaders in the world grew up with strong fathers who affirmed them and helped them form a positive image of themselves. I also want to encourage you to be a source of encouragement for other women in your life. Be a source of encouragement to your female friends and colleagues. Help and support their growth. Because when you encourage and support women, the truth is they will support you too.
Yawa Hansen Kwayo is a Ghanaian women's rights activist, starting the show off for us this morning on The Talking Point. It is 10 after 9 o'clock. A very good morning to all of you that have tuned in to the show. My name is Cathy Mohlahlana, and I'll be with you until midday as we lead conversations that move us. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. I trust that you had a good, restful weekend. I was fighting the flu off, but I think my voice is okay, right? It doesn't sound that bad. Doesn't sound too bad. And the looks I'm getting in studio are not helpful at all. Well, I don't think it sounds too bad at all. But yeah, in case you're hearing a little bit of a rasp there, that's a round of how my weekend went. I hope yours was better than mine was. Welcome to the show. We'll do what we always do for the open line. It is your national roundtable. And of course, you're more than welcome to raise any issue of national interest. And remember, everybody has a seat around the national round table. A message has just come through on the WhatsApp voice note that says, please call. I want to talk about, whatever issue they want to talk about. Yes. Remember, we can call you back, but you can also call in. The number to use, 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. Please feel free to use that line. And I'm saying that because sometimes when you just send a message on the WhatsApp line asking us to call you back, the producers only get to those messages towards 9:30. So you feel like you're being ignored, but actually you're not, because there are quite a lot of messages that come through on the WhatsApp line. So please just bear with us. I know sometimes some of you, they will tell me about this after the shows, and it's something I hardly ever address on air. But some of you, you shout at the producers in your WhatsApp voice notes, you swear at them, you believe that there's some conspiracy to keep you off air, and it's really, really not the case. And I think if we can just watch the abusive language, because they complain about it probably every other day that they come off on air, and they tell me just about how much abuse they're having to take from the listeners. And I don't think that that's fair. They do their best to give everybody an opportunity to speak. Yes, we know we're never ever truly going to get to everybody that wants to share their thoughts on the open line. Why? Because there's so many people that are listening to the show from across the country, some of them not even in the country, but everybody wants to have their point, heard and debated. They do the best that they can, but realistically, there's only so much they can do. So even with the callers, because there's some callers that feel that they have a right to be on air, that they're entitled to be on air. It's not okay, guys. Don't call in and swear the producers for not being able to put you up on air. So I guess that's how we're starting the week. It wasn't my intention to address it, by the way, but I guess since we're here, we might as well. So what can you expect coming up on the show today? The second hour of the show, we're going to be in conversation with the Border Management Authority. Dr. Mike Masiapato will be joining us. He is the commissioner of the BMA. They've recently released their first quarter performance review for 2025, and it paints somewhat of a mixed picture in as far as the work that they are doing at the BMA. On the one hand, there are things that they've been able to do. On the other, I think there's a genuine conversation to be looked at around the resourcing and the financing of the Border Management Authority. When an institution says that with the budget they have, they're currently only operating at 20% capacity, then we have to look at to what extent then is that organization being truly empowered to do the work that it's supposed to do. And we know that the issue of managing our borders is really at a critical point for our country. And we have to be putting our money where our mouth is, in as far as being genuine about truly trying to deal with all of the problems that are emerging from having porous borders, from having poor control sometimes in that instance. So he'll be joining us in the second hour of the show to unpack that issue. And then for the final hour, as part of our ongoing Women's Month celebrations, we're going to be having different conversation that focus specifically on women. Yes, we've had this conversation. If you're rolling your eyes and you're like, oh, Ghana, Women's Month, ha, 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 be strong. It's Women's Month the whole month. So for the final hour of the show, we're going to be looking at women who are in what is considered to be courageous careers. And we're starting it off with women who work in conservation. So these are the rangers that will go to the parts of our country that maybe some wouldn't dare be there by themselves at night. We've got lion spotters, those that are helping protect the rhino at night. So these are really incredibly male-dominated careers, but these women are shining the light and showing that, you know what, women can do it too. So we'll have three of them joining us in the final hour of the show. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation because I believe they'll also teach us a lot about the environments within which they work too. So that's what's coming up on the show for the next 3 hours. I'll be taking your calls on 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, dial in on 0614 104 107. So we seem to have dodged a bullet for Friday. The tariffs were supposed to kick in as far as the US and its sanction of South Africa is concerned. Yes, there are lots of other countries, but we'll focus on ourselves. That now is set to come into play on the 7th of August, which is going to be on Thursday. And as things stand, still lots of conversation about whether we are going to change that situation at all. It doesn't look like it because officially there still hasn't been a response to the offer that South Africa has made to the US. So that's still very much a big talking point. But a trade desk has now been set up to help deal with and support perhaps the effect of that decision. And I think there's still a lot of scrambling behind the scenes about what South Africa does now. All right, we'll take a quick break. I'm back with your calls on the open line.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
We love rating things, our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let me start it off in Middelburg this morning. Sfiso, good morning to you.
How are you, Miss Katie?
Doing well, thank you, sir. Go for it.
I'm good. No, Katie, I've heard here in the news, they say 2 men were burned to death by their boyfriend there in Mpumalanga. Katie, this thing pains me so much that here in South Africa, the government needs now to consider the death penalty to anyone who's killing someone. Because now that guy has killed these 2 women and burned them. So now he'll go to jail. When in jail, he'll be staying nice, eating food, getting education, free food. So here in South Africa now, it's high time that government consider death penalty to anyone who kills someone here in South Africa. Because these murderers here happening here in South Africa, Katie, are very, very bad. Serious, Katie.
Sfiso, why do you believe the death penalty is the answer? Because the death penalty really is dealing with the effect of something more fundamental that is broken in our society. Should we not be focusing our attention on that, on why a man would want to kill a woman in the most brutal way possible?
Okay, but Katie, he have already killed them, so we can't say why he have killed those ladies. If you kill someone, an eye for an eye. If you kill someone, you need to be killed. Here in Botswana, they are practicing the death penalty system. In other countries like China, they are practicing capital punishment. In serious in South Africa, we need to consider now the death penalty, because now, if you can check, you can see every man who's killing a woman, he spends time in jail after that he comes back from jail. What about the families of those ladies that are being killed here in South Africa? Serious, our justice system, they need to consider the death penalty here in South Africa now.
Okay.
It's very, very painful to hear these things happening here in South Africa. These murders are happening here in South Africa. It's painful, very, very painful.
Yeah. So I agree with you in that the rate of crime and the killings are absolutely horrific. But it's not just about that. There's something deeper going on in our society, that if we're always trying to deal only with the symptoms and don't give ourselves a true opportunity to understand what is leading to these killings, why are we seeing so much violence, then unfortunately we're always going to be going around in circles. Yes, you can introduce the death penalty, but the reality is that studies globally have shown there isn't that much of a deterrent effect on crime, even with the introduction of a death penalty. So we also have to be honest about what it is that will truly get out of something like that. Look at, the US. They've got the death penalty system there, and yet they still deal with high levels of crime. Unfortunately, what happens is that you find there's often a bias where it is black males that are often having to, be the ones that are targeted systematically. Those are some of the contemporary issues that we all know about. Crispin, you're in Durban. Good morning. Good morning, Crispin. All right.
Talk about Ubuntu.
Oh, there we go. There we go. You're live on air now, Crispin. Sorry about that.
This is something I experience every day. Whenever I go into a supermarket or some public place and I interact with other people, in this context, Durban, I generally speak Gesizulu. And the reaction I get is so positive. There's a sense of real connection. I mean, I may be a total stranger, but people connect with me and there's this warmth and friendliness, which is really significant. I mean, when we talk about crime, we often forget that it's not just about policing and getting criminals, it's also about building up social cohesion within the society. So I want to raise this in relation to the issue of what's happening at hospitals, the large numbers of people now being excluded. And I have witnessed, for example, babies, or actually South African babies, being refused admission when they are sick into Addington Hospital in Durban. A young South African with a foreign mother who's denied access to ARVs because, as a young South African, doesn't yet have an ID. And the level of inhumanity, the level of hatred and hostility that I witnessed is really shocking. It's like we are prepared as a people to sacrifice our highest values for the sake of insisting on the sanctity of the British borders. I mean, this is perpetuating colonialism, and it really is socially so incredibly divisive. The same happens, by the way, in reality, and it's often not noticed, that people from one part of the country are treated with hostility in another part of the country. And for Addington Hospital, for example, there are a lot of people who come from the Eastern Cape. That's fine. I mean, there should be no problem with that. But my students from the Eastern Cape told me about the hostility when they didn't speak the right kind of Nguni language, for example. So I think what's lacking here terribly is ethical leadership by our political figures. Where are the political leaders talking clearly to this issue and saying that if we've got problems, we can find ways of resolving these problems? They are complex problems. Migrancy is very complex. But we still have to have some ethical bedrock that informs the way that we as a society function.
On the issue of values, Crispin, do you think that that is something that we should be leaving in the hands of those that are regarded as leaders? Is it not something that we as the people need to be workshopping, need to be intentionally working on? Because the more that we get to understand why our governance system has been broken, the clearer it is that even those that we call leaders do not have the moral ground or the moral authority to be talking about values in some instances, because those are not values that they're living by. Those are not values that they're upholding, even when carrying out their duties.
Well, in reality, yeah, but that shouldn't stop them from saying, I myself may have failed, as so many of us have, okay. I myself may have failed, but I can still see that this is a deep moral issue. But it's clearly not only the political leaders. We need the church leaders speaking absolutely loudly and clearly on these issues. We need people in education. We need senior officials in government making it absolutely clear that we treat people with humanity. And the first priority must be humanity, because that is the ethics for our country. I think the reality is we have been so corrupted and corroded through money, the pursuit of money, but also that our history of violence has never been dealt with, leading to people taking out on other people their own frustrations and anger, which come from something completely different.
Okay. Crispin in Durban, we'll leave it there. Yes, leaders have a role to play, but I can just imagine when you stand up and you say, no, don't treat people in this way. Let's be humane towards each other. South Africans could well stand up and say, but has your system been humane towards us? When you look at the high unemployment levels in this country, has there been true and genuine care from government around that? So there's absolutely a lot of anger and hurt within our society. Is that anger being misdirected, misguided? Absolutely. But we must also deal with why that anger is there in the first place.
Morning, Cathy, your team, and all the listeners. No, Cathy, you did not do anything wrong. Thank you so much for raising the issue of some of the listeners who are abusive towards the producer, the presenters, analysts, politicians, and so on, and even towards fellow listeners. I don't think it's okay. It doesn't add any value towards the discourse. We're trying to build the nation here. So when we abuse each other or we abuse other people, insult and so on, how does it add value towards what we are trying to achieve? So thank you very much for raising it. I think we need to reprimand each other on this one. Thank you, Cathy. This is ZH in Mpangeni.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Save the Children South Africa is concerned about toddlers being coerced into using drugs in communities. A woman will appear in the Johannesburg Regional Court today on charges of attempted murder and drug abuse after a video went viral showing her offering her 4-year-old son a smoke from a mandrax pipe. The SACP leader, Solly Mapehila, has lauded the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, for speaking out about crime syndicates that have allegedly captured politicians, high-ranking police officials and members of the judiciary. And President Cyril Ramaphosa has emphasized the need to build South Africa's resilience within the international trading system. In his letter to the nation today, Ramaphosa focused on interventions government is putting in place to mitigate the impact of the decision by the United States to impose 30% tariffs on South African imports last week. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
The Uganda Cranes have a huge responsibility to exhilarate their fans on home soil. Meanwhile, the Desert Foxes believe they will prevail away from home. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Uganda versus Algeria this Monday, 4 August at 7 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Well, we continue with the conversation this morning. I see quite a number of you lined up who want to talk about issues at public hospitals. Remember, we are still planning to take a look at this issue, including with the health ombudsman. But Anonymous, you are in Botlokwa. Good morning to you. Good morning, Anonymous.
Yes, Cathy.
Yes,
You're
sir.
talking to Anonymous in Botlokwa. I would like to report the unfair labor practice that is happening at the hospital.
What's happening?
With regard to unfair labor practice, the payment of overtime. For the past 3 months, employees have not been paid overtime. And then they are told that if it's not paid within 3 months, it's forfeited.
Mm.
The other issue is about they work 12-hour shift, but they are only paid 11 hours.
What reasons have been given for this, Anonymous?
Say again?
What reasons have been given to staff for this?
They say that this is the law of South Africa. They are not paying overtime, and then if you are not paid within 3 months, you forfeit the overtime. You work 12-hour shift, you are paid for 11 hours. And then even the Sunday pay is not paid as per the law.
Is this how it has always happened?
No, it started last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
And then this issue started last year under the leadership of the Premier, the MEC was Dr. Opira Matuwa. And then the superintendent is Dr. Moloko Masipa.
And is this for nurses or is it just for all staff?
It happens to all staff, but selectively, there are certain staff members who are paid sometimes.
Yeah, okay. Look, Anonymous, this sounds like something that we'll have to take up with the Department of Health. It doesn't make sense, especially if it's just being applied on in a very inconsistent manner. Then of course it'll raise questions, but I don't know what the legislation says. So it's one that we'll have to take up with the relevant authority. So Yama, you're in East London. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. Cathy, I want to talk about also about because our public hospital, and here in Frey Hospital, you have a problem in Frey Hospital because always when you go there, your file is always missing. You have to start all over again. The doctor doesn't always have your history of your files that you they recorded you on the files. I don't know what Capstone using our files there in Frey Hospital. So I want maybe the MEC of East London or Frey Hospital, HOD of hospital to come and explain to us why is there a problem in the health system of Eastern Cape, and also the waiting period of the time is too long. Because when you get there, you can see there on the front there, it's the waiting time is 6 hours. So I don't understand how can the person just get to the hospital just to sit there for the whole 6 hours, and then you get there, maybe you are not helped in the way that you were supposed to be helped. So I wanted the Frey Hospital to come maybe explain to us why is it that they not other way that they should to record our files in the system so that they are safe. So because every time you go there, your file is always missing. That's what I want to talk about.
And how do they track your medical history? How do they track that the medication that they've given you is working if there's no file to go back to and look at the patient's history?
That's what I'm saying. It's a start because we have to start all over again to give you a small paper that the doctor have to record everything, start all over again, so that there's no request of how your medication was working and what have been done. So the doctor has to start all over again. So meaning, if you've been with something for maybe the past 5 years, after 5 years we have to start all over again. So I don't know what.
How long have you been going there for, Soyama?
Since 2015.
How many times have you had to reopen a file?
I think 3 times.
Okay. All right, Soyama, thanks for calling in with that matter. Yeah, and this is also part of why moving online will also assist. I mean, the integration of technology these days is it's incredible where the technology is going, because you could be treated by 5 different doctors and they all have access to your medical records and see what the other doctor has prescribed for you. But we're far from that if we still have to have patients that are opening new files, when they have to come to the same institution. What has happened to the old files? And we know that record keeping in our institutions, our health institutions, is really, really bad. But surely to allow it to get to that state, it also speaks to the quality of care for the patients themselves. KG, you're in Bloem. Good morning. Good morning, KG.
Morning, Cathy. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yes,
Cathy,
sir.
I'm just horrified to hear that that BMA is operating at 20% capacity. And I'm wondering, if that is the case, why did we launch it in the first place? Why didn't we wait until we were good to go and then we launch? Because for me, I just see it as some kind of a vanity project, some nice look thing. Because if it is not actually fulfilling the purpose for which it was established, I don't see why it was established in the first place. Home Affairs could have continued the way they were continuing before there was this DNA, And it also brings me to the issue of, if you remember, many years ago actually, SASA was established with the intention of being the agency responsible to take on the distribution and everything that is related to grants, etc., etc., etc. But immediately after its establishment, CPS, Green Road, and other people continued providing that service for which an entity was established, funded, people employed, vehicles procured, a minister put in charge of that department, and HOD, and all these kind of expenses, that go with establishing that entity. So at the end of the day, the issue that allegedly we are broke, there's no money in our country. You just wonder, is it an issue of there's no money, or is it an issue of a lot of wastage? When I imagine something tonight in my sleep, I don't think about the issue that the fact that money does not grow on trees. When I spend, I must spend each and every cent properly. And then at the end of the day, we have to sit in a situation where when budget time comes, tax must go to 2% up, because of this kind of lapses. So I'm just thinking the people must try to be more prudent in the way they think and in the way they implement, in the way they do things, so that we don't see this situation that there's a DMA and which is not functioning optimally as it was intended. So next time somebody thinks of something, they must wait until they are good and ready, at least 100% before launching and implementing. Because I can bet my last dollar, 5 years down the line, it will still be at 20%.
Do you think that it goes back to the intention, KG, that the true intention around the establishment of the BMA maybe just wasn't there, and it was done as a means of responding to South Africans when we raise challenges about the borders, so that government can say, look, we're doing something and this is part of what we're doing?
Yes, the issue is it our government saying I'm doing something, or is it our government pretending to be doing something? So in this instance, I will be happy to accuse them of pretending, because if it was not just a huge act of pretense on their side, that entity is supposed to be functioning optimally at 100%. considering the crisis with which we are sitting
as
a country because of this migration issue.
Absolutely, and we'll find out why there are these serious issues of underfunding in the next hour when we speak to the commissioner. But I also did find that quite alarming. 20% capacity is very low, but there's only so much they can do with the money that they've been given. They had 250 million in the previous financial year. That has been adjusted. It's 350 million. Now think about how much of that goes towards salaries and what then would be left over to actually run the operations of the entity. But these are some of the questions we'll deal with the commissioner. Xolani, you're in the Eastern Cape. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Cathy, I just want to ask, man, if maybe we can get some kind of clarity in terms of number crunching on how and that the ESCOM has managed to allow the municipalities to charge the way they charge. I just recently paid 2,000 South African rands and I only got 396 units. And that means it's plus minus, it's just over 5 rand, 3 cents or so per unit. And that was in the King Sabata Dalingebo municipality in the Eastern Cape. Then in the Buffalo City Metro, the figure is different for the unit. And the Nelson Mandela Metro is also different. Now, I compared, since I was traveling, and then I used the banks, the financial institutions, I paid the same fee for the same areas if I use their machines or their channels. How is it then that the public sector institution be allowed to charge differently? Are we having a private institution in the public sector, or are we operating a public institution called ESCOM, but then it's handed over to municipalities to operate as private sector institutions?
Look, Xolani, how I understand the system to work is that municipalities will buy electricity from ESCOM. The base price for that is determined by NERSA, right? The National Energy Regulator. And that's why we'll always, almost every year, have these debates about the tariffs that ESCOM is asking for from NERSA. But once that bulk cost is determined, then municipalities, because they are then in charge of the distribution of the electricity, they have to manage the infrastructure. So they put on their additional charges, which would fall under administration costs cumulatively. And that's why you'll find that in one municipality, the added cost is cheaper than it is in another municipality. So the first place to start would be with checking how much is your municipality charging on top of just that base cost, because there should be a breakdown of what exactly it is that you're paying for.
However, Kathy, I hear your analogy or analysis. We're talking about public institutions here in terms of uniformity when doing this. As I use the example of financial institutions like your banks in terms of how they operate, how is it then that the government can allow the municipalities to operate in the way that they are operating? Because these fees are exorbitant. I mean, think about this example I just used because it's a real case scenario. 2,000 rand, 396 units. It just doesn't make sense that institutions can be allowed to charge that much if then private sector can charge less in terms of using when they use their resources or their administration equipment to the same public that the same municipalities are serving.
Yeah. Look, Xolani, would it be feasible to have the same I think the formula is the same, right? Because even how municipalities add that cost, that's a framework that is designed by NERSA. But is it feasible to say that that tariff or that cost should be standardized across municipalities?
It is possible if the financial institutions, which are considered expensive, can be able to do that. Why can't the government, that is democratically elected, do a similar exercise?
But how would you then have a justification of, let's say, a municipality, a metro municipality like the city of Johannesburg, charging the same rates as Waterberg District Municipality in Limpopo, that has a very different population? I'm not saying that it's not possible.
What I want you to also look at, if the institutions where there's high consumption of electricity can charge less, and then in areas where there is less industrialization but the cost is high, then it doesn't make sense to me that where the highest users of electricity can be charged less, and then those who are using lesser electricity can be charged more than the others. Then it goes back on who has been outsourced to use the systems. This is where now the issue of, for me, regulation, because if you don't regulate those where they outsource the systems to pay or to receive funds, then you're going to have a situation of what is currently happening. Because the metros now see that the metros are charging less, but what you call local government municipalities, where it's still considered the poorest of the poor, are charging higher. It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, Tolani, I hear your point. Tolani out in the Eastern Cape. It is a very contentious issue, that issue of electricity. But the first place to start with is in municipalities and with councils. Look at what happened with the residents of Ekurhuleni when they stood up, when their council wanted to bring in additional tariffs that they thought were simply uncalled for. They won to some extent in that case. So while the framework is the way that it is, as residents, we also have to be in touch and keep up with things. There was an uproar in Johannesburg when that happened last year, but it quickly fizzled out, right? Now you just know that, okay, I'm working for electricity and water. John, you're in Pietermaritzburg. Good morning.
How are you, Auswaga?
Good, John. Go for it.
Yeah, happy Women's Month. I wonder, man. I just wanted to ask a question here. If maybe on the public people know, is this law still working? This one of drinking alcohol publicly, or holding a pot of beer on the public, because now it becomes dangerous now, because some people they are also using that bottle to injure the other people. Because if these guys, the young boys, are walking on the road and they are holding that bottle of beer, you can see they don't want to move away. And
John,
now,
what law are you talking about?
Drinking on public. Is that law still working? Because I remember that we mustn't drink on public. We must drink at home or tavern or somewhere. Alcohol.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Now, these days, Cathy, if you look, I don't know at the place where you stay, but at the place where I'm staying in Cleveland, even the old people now holding pots of beer on their hand, walking on the street, drinking. I'm not sure if it's that allowed, but it becomes dangerous because the same bottle they are using if they want to hit you with that bottle.
Yeah. Okay.
It becomes dangerous. Even when these guys are walking on the street, that you come with your car, they don't want to move because they got a weapon in their hand. They can hit you also. So I'm not sure if that law is still there. You mustn't drink on public or what, because if that law is still there, I saw some of the, I don't know, but I never saw them arrested.
You know what, John? Thanks for raising this issue. This is one that we'll also have to throw out there to the rest of the SAFM community. I know we've got lawyers and advocates and, really smart people who listen to the station and who listen to the show. I'm not aware of a wholesale law in the country that prohibits public drinking. What I do know is that municipalities, to an extent, regulate the public consumption of alcohol. So that would fall more under your bylaws. If I stand under correction, but that's as far as I'm aware. So if somebody else can please provide alternative clarity on this issue, I would really, really appreciate it. Like I said, municipalities each govern what is allowed in their areas, but generally drinking in public is not advised, but I don't know to what extent it is punishable in every municipality. But that's why I said, John, thank you for raising it. We can get clarity on that matter. Please, if you have an answer, call in quickly, 086 000 2032. I'd especially be keen to hear from either those within the public service who deal with this on a day-to-day, or maybe even lawyers who can provide clarity. Jose, you're calling us from Poch. Good morning.
Good morning, Kish. I want to speak about capital punishment. South Africa ranks the fifth most dangerous country global. And the most common crime committed here is murder. People are murdered every day. Last year, over 27,000 people were murdered here. And then that equates to 45 people per 100,000 people. As compared to the U.S., I heard you talking about the U.S. The U.S., it was only 6 per 100,000 people. So I think if there can be a death penalty, we are not sure, but maybe that will be a deterrent or serve as a deterrent for people to stop murdering other people. You know, people now, they are not scared. They will tell you, because they know they kill you, and then sometimes they don't even spend a year in jail, because after some investigations, it will be said that there's no enough evidence. Some will be sentenced to 10 or 15 years, and then they get parole. So really, look at the countries that have death penalty. Let's look to our neighbors, Botswana. Really, Botswana has the lowest crime rate in the world. Look at China, look at Thailand. They don't even have a problem of drugs there, because people know that if they are caught, they'll be held to pay. So really in South Africa, these politicians are not doing us any justice, because most of the crime is not affecting them directly. It's affecting us ordinary people. I mean, we've left them to decide what is good for us. Really, the criminals are way less than the people who obey the law and who wants this penalty.
So Jose, then the fundamental right to human life that is entrenched in our constitution, you think that it's time we review that?
Cathy, if you kill a person, your human rights should be waived and should not apply, because you have taken a human life. Then why do we look at the people who kill and then say they have human rights? What about the people who are getting killed? Really, even these human rights groups in South Africa, to be blatantly honest, I don't like them. Because those people talk from big offices in Sandton, in Cape Town. They are not being affected by crime like us who lives in townships, villages, and wherever.
Okay.
Really, yes.
All right, Jose, we'll leave it there. Thanks for that contribution. Zola, you're in Bloom. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes, sir.
Cathy, my issue is on the delegation from Lesotho who are coming to meet South African delegation regarding the Lesotho citizens who are living in South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah. Cathy, much as they are concerned about their citizens in South Africa, they must also address the issue of crime committed by their citizens in South Africa. And also the issue of illegal mining, because most of the Zamazamas are illegal immigrants. And if you look around, you go to Soweto, you go to Mangaung, most of the taxi drivers, small and big taxis, are from the neighboring states. Lesotho in particular, if you come to Bloemfontein, and they do not have the documents, and it's not a specialized skill. I understand when they fight for the rights of those people, but also they must educate their people about how to behave when you are in a neighboring state. And also teach them that when you go to South Africa, make sure that you have the proper documents to be in South Africa. South Africa has got a population of plus minus 63 million. Now we still have to accommodate people from Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and so on. We are running out of medication funds. And also the 30% tariffs is going to hit South Africa harder than it hits Lesotho. So as much as they complain about the treatment, of which I don't believe it is the way they bring it forth, they must also address and educate the people that behave, do not commit crime when they're in these countries.
You know what always surprised me was that in the run-up to Lesotho's election, it must be a year and a half ago now, what was some of the evidence that was emerging, especially with the work that was done by investigative journalists into illegal mining, is that the funds or the proceeds from that were following and tracking back to political parties in Lesotho and funding their activities and elections campaigns. I never saw anybody address that, not on the Lesotho government side and not on the South African government side either.
Yes. And some of them, Katie, they have houses, articles of which we South Africans do not get. You find that somebody is from Lesotho or Mozambique or Zimbabwe, but is owning an RDP house in South Africa. Such things they must address. We want to live in harmony with our neighboring states, but they must also respect our laws, respect the citizens. Then we can live harmoniously together.
Okay.
That is my point, Katie. Thank you so much.
Zola, let's leave it there. It's now time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, communities urged to report drug abuse cases where kids are at risk, and SACP leader praises Mkhwanazi for speaking out against crime syndicates. Good morning. Save the Children South Africa is concerned about toddlers being coerced into using drugs in communities. A woman will appear in the Johannesburg Regional Court today on charges of attempted murder and drug abuse, after a video went viral showing her offering her 4-year-old son a smoke from a mandrake's pipe. 3 others have also been charged in the case. Child Protection Lead at Save the Children, Margaret Zulu, says communities need to report suspicious behavior if they think a child is being subjected to drug abuse.
This is not only a breach of the child's right to protection from harm, as outlined in the Children's Act, as you know, but also a reminder of the urgent need for stronger community vigilance support system for vulnerable families, and also enforcement of child protection laws.
The bail application of a Limpopo police officer and a co-accused charged with killing 9 people for insurance payouts will resume at the Polokwane Magistrates Court today. Sergeant Rachel Kutumela, her sister Anna Shukane and a daughter Flora Shukane have been charged with 9 counts of murder and several other charges of insurance fraud, amounting to 10 million rand. Award-winning detective Captain Keshi Mabunda is expected to testify opposing the bail application. Renda Niralipaswa reports.
During the trio's last court appearance, Mabunda reiterated that they deliberately took accidental cover on the 9 people they stand accused of killing. Some of the victims were found dead under mysterious circumstances. Most of them were said to have lived with mental and or physical disabilities. Mabunda said most died in few months after insurance policies on their lives were taken out by the 3 accused. He also said that his investigations has revealed that if they are released on bail, the 3 would endanger the lives of more civilians, as they have been attempting to get those close to them to take out cover on others.
The SACP leader Solim Mapehila has lauded the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for speaking out about crime syndicates that have allegedly captured politicians, high-ranking police officials and members of the judiciary. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu was placed on special leave pending a commission of inquiry into these allegations. Speaking at a meeting commemorating the SACP's 104th anniversary near Richards Bay yesterday, he said crime and corruption have become a crisis in South Africa.
These interventions, we believe, must include the forensic auditing and consistent monitoring to isolate and hold unscrupulous and captured elements to account from this crime and criminal justice system. We also call for stringent measures to enforce full accountability, focusing on all office bearers and officials within every law enforcement authority.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has emphasized the need to build South Africa's resilience within the international trading system. In his letter to the nation today, Ramaphosa focused on interventions government is putting in place to mitigate the impact of the decision by the United States to impose 30% tariffs on South African imports last week. He says the country cannot afford to be complacent in the face of increasingly turbulent winds and must adapt. Busi Bopela reports.
An export support desk to assist producers affected by U.S. tariffs has been established by government to guide with expansion into new markets, including the rest of Africa, Asia and the Middle East. The president adds that such companies will also be eligible to receive a support package, the modalities of which will be communicated in due course. Ramaphosa says that in the coming months, the National Exporter Development Program, aimed at growing the pool of export-ready companies, will be scaled up. All this while continuing to engage the U.S. for mutually beneficial trade and investment relations.
And finally, the Chilean President Gabriel Boric has declared 3 days of national mourning for 6 mine workers who were killed after an earthquake struck a copper mine. Rescuers have found the trapped miners in collapsed tunnels dead. One other worker was killed at the time of the incident. Boric says his thoughts are with the families.
Les entrego en particular a sus seres queridos mis más sinceras condolencias.
I offer my heartfelt condolences to their loved ones during this undeniably difficult time. I know the people of Chile share in this sorrow and mourn this tragic loss together.
Recapping the top stories, Save the Children South Africa is concerned about toddlers being coerced into using drugs in communities. A woman will appear in the Johannesburg Regional Court today on charges of attempted murder and drug abuse after a video went viral showing her offering her 4-year-old son a smoke from a mandrake's pipe. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Niger and Guinea both believe they will conquer the 90 minutes in the West African Derby. Who will celebrate the final whistle? This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Niger versus Guinea this Monday, 4 August at 4 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the
game. This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 9 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, we're in conversation with the Border Management Authority, the leader of that institution, Commissioner Masia Pato, will be joining us on air. Before we get to do that, I also see a media briefing is taking place in Pretoria this morning, and that is where the DTIC Minister, Pax Tau, and the International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola, are giving a media briefing on the issue of the U.S. tariffs. I think this is actually the first briefing that we are seeing out of the South African government dealing specifically with this issue and what then those conversations have been and what we can expect going forward, is particularly following the Friday deadline of the 1st of August. So we're going to keep a close eye on that briefing. Well, that said, let's take some of your voice notes from the open line, and then we'll continue with the show.
Good morning, Cathy. Cathy, just a quick one. You know what actually is bewildering, something that is very much annoying nowadays. It's the lack of authority, law in our country. We're becoming so barbaric and uncivilized in each and every day. You know, when I listen to a professor talking about the Dudula movement, how in fact referring to how such acts make the country to seem as if we have surrendered the law to whatever people want to do. Taxi drivers, I've been stopped by a taxi driver now, holding a meeting with a friend of mine and asking me if I'm bolting or not. Where do taxi drivers get this law? Why are they law enforcement? Where do they get the authority? Come on, guys, really, this is really making me angry.
Good morning, FM listeners. I do agree with this guy who is taking off a death penalty. Really, if you can check the rate of people who are killed in location rather than the children of these politicians, really it hinders, it worries, because now it's only the poorer of poorest who are being killed than the ones who are rich. So really, there must be a review of the death penalty. As he said, like Botswana, there's low crime there than in South Africa. Thank you.
Morning, Cathy. I'm sick and tired of people in the middle class or in the top class, whatever, thinking that they can lecture poor black people on how to feel about the overcrowding of public infrastructure. More than 28 million South Africans rely on these clinics and hospitals. that are now overcrowded by millions more coming from across the border. So people are well within their right to defend that public infrastructure, especially from illegal criminals. Criminals don't stop being criminals because they are at a clinic. There's nothing wrong with asking for illegal foreigners to be deported, even at a hospital, because a crime doesn't go away because you are at a hospital or a clinic. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
We're really lacking in terms of leadership across the board, actually, my sister. But I just want to focus on the political leadership, because they're supposed to give the guidance and set the precedence as to how society behaves. But when they act in a manner that is impunitive and in a manner that says you can get away with breaking the law, or there are minimal consequences for breaking the law, society is bound to act in that way. And unfortunately, that is what we see right now in our society. People have minimal respect for the law, and when political leadership does not address issues that really touch on the civilians, it gives an indication to the civilians that this law that that there's nothing unto they should take on to themselves. Now we see the rise of Operation Tutula.
EFC is live this Thursday in the heart of Africa. Battle lines are drawn. Africa's best face Europe's elite. Vili, the White Lion van Rooyen, is now back to defend his title against Anatoly Gaffin. And Ntando, the Zulu warrior zombie, receives the challenge of the fiercer Muhammad Salohidinov. EFC 126 is live this Thursday from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out, because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point. It's 15 after 10. So we are still going to be having our conversation with the Border Management Authority's leadership. Dr. Mike Masiapato is already standing by. I do want us to go to Pretoria, though, just for a couple of minutes to hear what is coming out of this briefing. The International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola, and the DTIC Minister, Park Stau, are giving an update on the US-SA situation in as far as the tariffs are concerned.
And Saudi Arabia. These efforts are not only opening doors to new opportunities, but also reinforcing our commitment to retaining the vital markets we already have. South Africa's economic future is resilient, and we are working tirelessly to secure it. We have also developed a number of trade and investment packages with a number of countries, including Japan, that aim to unlock new markets, access opportunities. You will be aware also that next week there is also a TICAD forum in Japan. While the current measures present challenges, it also presents opportunities to build and accelerate the implementation of the AFCTA and to develop new partnerships in markets that have remained untapped, including Asian and Turkey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Lamola. Good morning again, colleagues. My name is Carlo, as been previously introduced. I'll be facilitating the Q&A session. We'll take a round of 5 hands first. If you could please indicate your name and the news agency that you represent or the media house that you represent before you start your question.
Okay, so we're going to have to leave it there. It looks like we got into that quite late, with both ministers really being done with their address in as far as this particular conversation is concerned. We'll have to look out then to the news bulletins to hear what exactly it is that has come out of that briefing. On that note, I think let's then go into our 10 o'clock conversation.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
While the Border Management Authority carries out the border law enforcement functions, looking particularly at biosecurity and immigration, the Commissioner of the BMA, Dr. Mike Masiapato, briefed the media this weekend on the first quarter performance review for 2025 of this particular institution. A lot has been raised in as far as its successes, but also its challenges. Let's dive into it. Dr. Masiapato, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and we appreciate the opportunity.
We appreciate your coming on. So if we can begin more broadly, Dr. Masiapato, and just begin with where the BMA is today. This is an organization that is still very much in its early years of setup, of development. And, it seemed that for the last couple of years, you've really just been looking at how to get yourselves established and functioning. What would you say is the state of the institution today? What have you been able to do?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Cathy. Maybe, yes, let me start by indicating the point, as you have started, that we started officially operating on the 1st of April in 2023. And on that basis, our genesis of establishment was the moving away from a multi-agency approach in as far as border management is concerned. You will remember that government departments will send people into the ports to go implement their respective legislation. And on that particular basis, there were a lot of people in the environment, coming from various departments. And obviously, we tried, mechanisms to coordinate them over the years, and that has been very problematic. And I suppose that has been the key genesis of the nature of the problems that we are sitting with in the country today, arising from the border environment. So we came in, integrated all of those various, individuals, various functions. And as we speak, we are actually implementing more than 28 pieces of legislation from the entire ecosystem. So obviously, as you will be aware, Cathy, on the 5th of October, the president then officially, presented to the BMA as the third national armed law enforcement authority in the Republic, meant to operate in the 71 ports of entry across the country, 52 of those being land, 10 of those being international airports, and 9 of those being seaports. But we also operate in what is called the border law enforcement area, which is 10 kilometers from an internationally recognized borderline, both land as well as at the coastline. But at the coastline, we also go 12 miles into the sea, as it were. So that is the essence. Yes, indeed, in the past 24 months, part of what we've been doing was to put together the organization in terms of all of the facets of putting together the organization. So at this point, we can say, Cathy, that we are fairly, stabilized organizationally, with the rest of the back office things having been set up. But at the same time, as we were setting up the organization, we were also operating, as it were, because we couldn't necessarily have a point of pause, because indeed border management could not stop, but we had to do it in as much as we were also establishing the organization. Where we are now, Cathy, we can say that we are fairly stabilized, and we have started to see some of the impact of the work that we've been doing in the past, I would say, almost 27 months.
So when you talk about the organization being relatively stable, I want you to expand on that for me, but also in the context of some of the figures that you shared yesterday. Initially, the BMA had asked for over 2 billion rand to be fully operational. This is 2 billion rand from the country's fiscus. You've received, of course, only a fraction of that to date, which is 250 million rand. So by all indications, even on your own calculations, you can only operate at 20%, and you're only operating at 20% of your capacity as we speak.
Yeah, so Cathy, when I spoke about the organization being, stable, I meant in as far as the back office processes are concerned. I meant in making sure that organizational, in terms of our organizational structure, all of those administrative things fully set up. I meant issues around the issues of the entire policies and all of those kind of issues that took, I would say, most of our time, especially in the first 8 months of the organization's existence, as it were. So that is what I meant. But in terms of us, in relation to the mandate that we have and also in relation to the capacity that we have, definitely we are very far in as far as that aspect is concerned. You're very much correct, Cathy. This is the issue of public record. We have spoken in Parliament over and over. When we started, our organizational structure as approved, over and above people that we had to move from the government departments into the BMA, we actually were supposed to have around 11,200 individuals. And we knew at the time that the people that we were supposed to integrate were sitting at around 1,900. So on that particular basis, yes, indeed, we were able to integrate those people. And additional to that, we brought at least between 500 and 600 people into the ecosystem. I mean, you will remember the 200 border guards we did in 2022, the 400 we did in 2023, and therefore, we are now then sitting at a capacity of around 2,600, just below 2,600. So that on its own demonstrates the reality that financially we wanted 2.9 billion as new money into the ecosystem to be able to up in terms of our human resources, to be able to up in terms of our technology, but also be able to procure tools of trade. So on that particular basis, unfortunately, with the 2.9 requirement, we're able to get 250 million, which is effectively what you will call 8% of what we requested. So that unfortunately made us to struggle to be able to get the organization fully off the ground. And that is why even capacity-wise, when it comes to issues of human resources, we are sitting at now at around 8,500, what you call vacancies in as much as our structure is concerned. So in that context, we are very much behind. And I can also add, Cathy, to say, because of that reality in terms of the difficulty of us getting a breakthrough financially, we then made an application in what is called criminal asset recovery account, wherein we got at least 150 million. That money is what enabled us to buy things that are visible, whether it's the prison carriers we are using, whether it's the drones that we are talking about today, whether it's the body cams that we are talking about today, including the arms, tools of trade like your guns and things like that. So otherwise, that is what enabled us to be able to be almost where we are today. But we have done business cases after business case to the Treasury, and we are hopeful that there should be a breakthrough as we go forward.
Hearing you run through some of those numbers and just, I suppose, being fully aware of just how little you have to work with in carrying out your mandate, how do you even begin to measure your effectiveness as an organization? Because the only way that you can be effective in why you were established in the first place, it comes down to the ability to deliver. So what standard are you currently using to gauge progress, to gauge work done? If you're nowhere close to getting what you had asked for in order to fully operationalize the BMA?
Yeah, you see, Cathy, I think what we can say is the fact that the environment that we are operating in and the kind of work that we carry, it is very much big and very much sophisticated. In the sense that if you were to look at the kind of responsibility we carry, like I said, 28 pieces of legislation are actually sitting in our doorstep in as far as movement, between countries is concerned. So our work is very wider beyond immigration. And I do know that most of the time there is a bit of an appreciation around issues of immigration, but our work is more bigger than that. You'll remember we deal with issues of agricultural biosecurity, effectively meaning the consignments as they enter the Republic. Our own agricultural biosecurity experts has to check them, has to make sure they comply with the country's import permits, have to comply to ensure that the phytosanitary certificates are issued. If we talk about plants, for example, and we have to make sure there is veterinary certificates if we talk about animals and their products as they enter the Republic. So just in the last quarter, we spoke about 38,000 consignments that we had to work on across all the ports of entry, particularly in the harbors and all of those issues. So your question is, how do we assess our efficacy within the context of the mandate as we speak? So we will say, Cathy, that we are working with the entire ecosystem in terms of economics in the country. If you think about the imports that we deal with literally daily with all the importers in the country across the entire system, then you will then realize that we are actually servicing them as we are supposed to, of course, under very serious strained environment. And that is the essence. Environmental biosecurity, the same. We deal with the movement of endangered species. We protect the country from alien and invasive species in terms of them entering the Republic. We have the responsibility to maintain our country's biodiversity. We have to protect the ecosystem of the Republic. All of those kind of things are done by our environmental biosecurity experts. In terms of health, Cathy, everybody as they come into the Republic, we have the responsibility to actually assess their state of health to make sure that we don't have the importation of communicable diseases in the Republic. We deal with the issues of the movement of mortal remains. Just in the last quarter, we almost dealt with 1,000 bodies that had to be processed. The majority of those, which is over 940, were exported out of the country, meaning people from other jurisdictions who passed on in our country that we had to process out, and the remainder were people coming into the country. Now, when we come to issues of immigration, Cathy, I can say that is the one that is a bit popular. But I can give you a bit of an aggregated figure, just to be able to see the kind of contribution we are making.
Okay, Dr. Masiapato, I'm going to ask you to pause it there. We have to take the latest news headlines, and then we'll continue with this conversation shortly. This is Dr. Mike Masiapato. He's the Commissioner for the Border Management Authority. It's now 10:30, time for your latest headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good morning. Rea Vaya bus commuters in Orlando East, Soweto are stranded due to a strike by bus operators, with the reason behind the strike still unknown. A 19-year-old student at the University of Stellenbosch has been found dead in his residence. Acting Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Learning and Teaching, Professor Richard Stevenson, says the second-year student was found over the weekend. And Save the Children South Africa is concerned about toddlers being coerced into using drugs in communities. A woman will appear in the Johannesburg Regional Court today on charges of attempted murder and drug abuse after a video went viral showing her offering her 4-year-old son a smoke from a Mandrax pipe. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 99 to the dollar, 23 rand 88 to the pound, and 20 rand 81 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mainly green in the closing bell. The JSE is mainly higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe have extended gains. Gold is trading at $3,355, platinum $1,314 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $69.71 a barrel.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
The councillor, Dambuza, of the EFF, was choked to the point of unconsciousness. I trust you're okay now, health-wise?
I'm fine, although some of the body pains now are starting to kick in, but I'm fine.
So, and I'm glad for that. Tell us what happened from your side.
We always, in the City of Cape Town Council, have a speaker that can run the council through the rules. She does not understand them, and she always needs to be given assistance to understand them.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
The ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're focusing on the Border Management Authority for this hour. Dr. Mike Masiapato, who is the commissioner for this entity, joins us on the line. So, Mike, I was still asking you about how you measure progress by your institution, given how undercapacitated, how under-resourced you are.
Yeah, no, thanks, Cathy. I was just saying that obviously, if we are to just uphold the capacity we have versus the responsibility that we have been given in terms of the law, obviously the kind of impact that we have now, it is at a very low level, compared to if we were indeed at the right level. But because of that reality, we have a responsibility and we have to do our best. So we cannot necessarily throw the hands in the air and say there is, underfunding and all of those. We have to do the work. And part of us having to do the work in the way we do it is to also be able to prove ourselves that we can be able to do this work and we can do better if we are able to be capacitated. And I want to give you practical examples, Cathy, and you must be able to put your mind in everything that I say so that you will be able to also, kind of witness it yourself. The first thing, or maybe let me start talking about the figure first. Since we came on the ground, we have also made sure that we keep our incremental figures so that we are able to have a broader feel in terms of the impact. So since the introduction of the border guards into the environment from a border management point of view, we count over 496,000 plus individuals that we have intercepted, apprehended, and make sure that they are deported. And that is from the 15th of July 2022 to date. And we do that incremental figure so that we can be able to track our contribution. Secondly, again, incrementally, we talk about over 349 plus vehicles that has been hijacked in South Africa with the intention of exiting them out of the country for the purposes of being sold out there and all of that. That we had to actually intercept, hand it over then to the police services for them to be able to process further. In terms of the interceptions, we can talk about a lot of technical data, which we won't have time for, but I can just indicate that the interception of illicit cigarettes coming from our northern border, coming into South Africa, we are now approaching over 1 billion worth of cigarettes that we intercept on a daily basis. So those are some of the highlights. Now, let me then put it this way, to say that if you look at that, and then you are able to say, what are the other contributions that we have made? One, you will remember, Cathy, before we took over, just from an immigration point of view, there will be instances where buses, for example, get intercepted on the corridor, maybe on the N1 corridor coming from Beitbridge, or on the N4 corridor coming from Libombo on the Mozambican side, or even on the N11 coming from Maseru side from Lesotho, where buses got intercepted by the police. When they stop the bus, everybody in that bus has no document at all. And that has been a daily occurrence or a weekly occurrence all that while. But when we came on, we had to make sure we start doing the work differently. So we literally said, nobody enters a port of entry unless they have legitimate documents and they are a legitimate traveler. Already what that did is the fact that we no longer have people that literally just walk through the port without documents, which has been the case. Now you can just observe yourself by looking back to say, when last did we have those kind of interceptions as we used to see them? The reason why you don't see them now, they've gone down, is because of the contribution that we have made in as far as the ecosystem. The second one, Cathy, I want to give a practical example on is around issues of the management of trade, particularly in our land ports. You will remember previously, just even in the middle of the time, there will be trucks on the N1 going to Beitbridge or on the N4, a lot of them staying for 2 weeks there, or maybe 10 days, whatever the case might be, or even 4 days, trying to cross the border. We've been able to bring efficiencies in those particular ports. Today, as we speak, we talk about a different game. And that is why the freight forwarders themselves, meaning the people that do the movement of goods in between borders, you know them. They used to come on shows like yourself, talking about how frustrated they are because there was no responsiveness to be able to deal with those issues. We came into the space, we work with them, and we're able to bring some efficiencies. That is why you will see all those chaotic issues have actually been reduced, if I can use that word. Same with even in festive period. These are some of our contribution, Kate, that I can cite.
What are your top 3 priorities? Because I also imagine that there's a lot of shifting around that you have to do, given the limited resources you're working with.
You see, the biggest issue, which is our number one priority, Cathy, within the context of the mandate that we have, because immigration is the biggest issue, or what you call illegal migration is the biggest issue of concern. That is our number one priority, to be able to deal with illegal migration. And that is why most of our investment, most of our focus, and most of our contribution is in that particular space. It is for that reason that we have started bringing in the drones, which then gives us the ability to have an eye-based view on our vulnerable segments, where we are able to pick up people trying to enter the country illegally. We now have the border guards on the ground as the response team to be able to respond specifically to those areas and do the interception. So that is our biggest area of focus. The reason why South Africa might not see the impact is because there is already a number of people that are already in the country illegally. And on that particular basis, the only difference can be picked up when we succeed in terms of getting those people that are actually illegal to be deported, or we have to get them legal. And that is the essence. So once we achieve that, then our contribution will start being visible. That's the first one. But the second one, Cathy, which is a facilitation aspect, and that one is again in terms of the facilitation of people. We need to facilitate people better so that people don't sit inside OR Tambo, inside Cape Town International for an hour or 2 hours trying to enter the country. Be able to be facilitated a bit better. And that is why we had to make sure that we give people the best experience when they arrive in our country as guests, in the context of tourists and all of those. And I think you will surely be aware that we used to have challenges where people will queue for the longest time and then they will start complaining, and then it becomes a bit of a challenge. So that is our second key area, meaning facilitating people better. And of course, the third one, which is more in the land side, is making sure that in terms of trade facilitation or trade movement, we are at least able to facilitate the trade as smoothly as possible with less costly, realities to the exporters, for example, in this instance, and that becomes our third. So these are our third top aspects that we deal with, and the rest of the other areas are fairly stabilized, as it were. And we are very much hopeful that with what we've been doing as a contribution, there have been some bit of progress. And the better feedback, Cathy, you will hear it if you engage with the people we service, freight forwarders for trade, as it were, or even the people that come through that we process on a daily basis.
I've got some questions coming in for you from our listeners already, and I'll get to those in a moment. But you talk about the technology that you have employed, including drones, that you're able to deploy to keep an eye on what's happening in the borders. What happens in as far as responses are concerned? Because we know that South Africa has really got a very long borderline. some have said it's practically impossible to try and police it. So I'm curious to know how you, as the BMA, are dealing with that.
Yeah, maybe let me start by indicating this point, Cathy, that as much as we are in the front line and we are more given this kind of responsibility, we still don't do this work by ourselves only. I mean, we do work together with members of the South African National Defence Force, who are mainly in the deeper parts of the borderline, as it were, to be able to assist in terms of dealing with issues of illegal migration. And similarly, we are also partnering with our colleagues from the South African Police Service, again, in doing this particular work. And this part of the reality is also on the basis that we are still in the building activity, as it were. That's the first point I wanted to say. Then the second thing, you are very much right, Cathy. If you look at the length of our borderline, if you look at from Mozambique right through until you get to Namibia, it's 4,470 kilometers. That is our borderline. In terms of the coastline, it's 3,900 kilometers, again through the waters from Mozambique into Namibia. So the key issue is not every place of those borderline is habitable, meaning it is not everywhere where ordinary people can be able to traverse and enter and exit the country, as it were. It is for that reason that we have mapped out all these particular areas and we have identified what we call vulnerable segments. So vulnerable segments means areas where ordinary people, simply put, where civilians can be able to walk in and out of the Republic. And those are the areas where we prioritize our deployment in terms of the border guards, prioritize the deployment also as we work with the police, for us to be able to identify people trying to enter the country illegally. So
Is that not a
doing
duplication, though? Because one would imagine that that's where the SANDF and the SAPS already are, or should be anyway.
Oh yeah, so maybe Cathy, let me clarify that point, because the point that you've just said is very much important, and that particular point sometimes is very much confused all the time. Let me put it this way. We are responsible for border law enforcement. So before our existence, the police had a policing team that is called Border Police. So that particular team has been doing border law enforcement on behalf of the BMA prior to our existence. Now, the reality is we have to build capacity to be able to do that work. So that is why I use the word we are being assisted. It's not a duplication. They are assisting to the extent that once capacity is there. If I can talk about numbers, for instance, we talk about over, for example, 4,000 police officers that are actually assisting in this instance. So the reality of it is we need to be able to get that capacity to be able to release the police in that particular responsibility.
So then it's not the BMA that's doing that work, it's the police.
No. It is the police that are doing the work on the basis of BMA's responsibility. And I'm talking here in the Cathy?
Yes, I'm listening to you. So the point that I'm making is it is not capacity that is coming from the BMA that's doing that work. It is resources of the SAPS that are being deployed to do that work. But then how do the reporting lines work? So if you are talking about the existence of the BMA at these entry points where people are known to come through, but you don't have the capacity to be implementing that work, the SAPS is implementing that work, how then, or who then takes responsibility for the successes and failures? Should it not be the SAPS? Because these are their resources.
Yeah, you see, maybe let's put it this way, Cathy. BMA, as an organization, it came into the responsibility. As we came into the responsibility, there were people that had been in that particular environment. Maybe let me also simplify it this way. There have been 1,200 individuals that have been doing immigration work, meaning they were stamping passports across all the ports. So when BMA's establishment kicks in, so those particular individuals who used to work for the Department of Home Affairs then become the officials of the Border Management Authority. And that is exactly what I meant when I spoke about the integration. Similarly, around 380 individuals doing agricultural biosecurity who had been the employees of the Department of Agriculture. They've been doing the work, therefore they become members of the BNA or employees of the BNA. That is the integration that I'm talking about. So what I'm actually saying is we've been given the responsibility, but because we are obviously 26 months old as we are busy with the integration, I'm saying we are not fully capacitated in terms of other areas. And I was giving you the example of the border law enforcement side, which is the border guard.
So the point is that these individuals are still employed by the SAPS. You haven't been able to take over the employment because you don't have the money to.
No. Yeah, when you talk about the border law enforcement, we have 600. Remember that point. We have 600 already functioning, being assisted by the complement of the SAPS, primarily because they have been doing the work before our establishment. Now, your question is, who then takes responsibility? It is the BNA that takes responsibility because we are having that mandate of border law enforcement.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, maybe the issue is, you say who takes the responsibility for the failures or the successes? I will say BNA takes the responsibility because we have the responsibility to do the work. And that is why we are currently using a force that is available.
Yeah, look, I hear you've tried to explain it, Dr. Masiapato, but to me, even from a functionality point of view, you haven't been able to onboard some of these members. What you describe in relation to the biodiversity work that you're doing in relation to Home Affairs, that is clear. But when it comes to the aspect of the policing and the aspect of the SANDF, I think it's still very murky. It does sound like there's a lot of collaboration, but as you said, you practically only have 600 people on the ground that you can say these actually belong to the BMA, which then would also, I think, contribute to what you're able to get done along those entry points that are such a big issue of contestation. Let me bring in the questions from our listeners. I'll start with those on the WhatsApp line. We'll take 2 questions at a time from the WhatsApp line, and then we'll also go to the phone lines.
Good morning, Sis Kefi. It's Angel here at Lexdorp. I was asking if you can ask Nadema Siapata about the request of 90-day visa from the Mozambican side, because we have more people that are making more passports, are getting more passports now than anyone in the around SADC, and we have more visitors that are coming here, or also more migrant or economic migrants, people that are coming into South Africa legally. So I was asking if you can ask him about the 90-day visa, since most of the people now are getting to the legal ways of traveling to South Africa. That will be helpful for the most people. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. It's Edward. Cathy, I've got a question to Dr. Masiapato on what he's going to do to lessen overstaying, which is causing 80% of illegal migrants to be staying in South Africa due to the days which they are given at the border. A person is given 7 days or less to travel to Cape Town and come back through the Beitbridge border.
Mr. Masiapato, if you can answer those 2 for me, please, briefly.
Yeah, no, thanks, Cathy. You see, these are the issues that are, under normal circumstances, they will need more time, Cathy. But let me quickly indicate. Yes, indeed, there is an agreement within SADC that countries or people from the countries here will then be entering into South Africa, as we also do in entering into the other countries for 90 days. So basically what it means is you can enter for 90 days visa-free. So you don't have to apply for visa to enter, but that is for visitors as you visit. So you can do 90 days, and that is per annum. Now, in terms of the issue of people entering within the context of the 90 days, that is how the provision is designed, and that is how people have to enter. So if they come with a valid passport, we will process them into the country. But obviously, when the 90 days kicked in, or before it ends, then they have to exit the country, and that is the essence. Now, the second question is about overstaying. What can we do on the basis of the overstaying because of the days that people are given? But when you come into South Africa, let's say your first visit, you spend 30 days. It means you have 60 days left. Then if you stay again in 1 year, then you have another 60 days that you have used. Then you have 30 days left. So obviously, if you stay another 15 days, then you'll have 15 days left because we add all of the days. So if you are left with only 2 days in the year for you to visit South Africa, and you visit South Africa and you enter Beitbridge because you want to go to Cape Town, obviously you're going to overstay because your days will have ended. And when you exit the country is when we are going to then V-list you and then end up saying that you are banned from entering the country. If it is less than 30 days, as you have said yesterday, is going to be for 12 months. And obviously, if it is more than 30 days, it's going to be 5 years. So that is how the flow is, Cathy, on this part.
All right, let me go to Khojane in Kroonstad. Good morning, Khojane.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. How are you?
I'm doing
Hello.
well, thank you, sir. Go for it. You're live on the radio.
Yeah, thank you, Sis Cathy. Dr. Masi, Commissioner, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Masi Apato.
Morning, sir.
Yes, Sis Cathy, what I'm about to say happened to me. Very, very bad thing that happened to me. I will make it brief because it's a bit longer. On the 1st December last year, while at the Fixback border gate crossing into Lesotho, I felt sick in my stomach, and as a result, I vomited on the ground. I was on the way to check out my passport to be stamped so that I cross into Lesotho. One BMF official, I'm not going to mention his name because he's a border guard, it's a junior official, approached me and demanded me to clean my puke. And then I was a bit dizzy, and when I regained my strength, I asked him whether it was a policy, it was procedure, it was really what they always do to other people when they are sick, like I was. Instead of getting help, then I'm ordered to clean my puke. And then we exchanged some words. After some time, the official took me in one of the, in one of the offices. While escorting me, he handcuffed me and he treated me physically. And then he came back. He ordered the person I was traveling with to clean my puke. And the person, because he was very afraid, and he did oblige, and he cleaned my puke. So I went to two commanders. This one I can mention their names because they are senior officials, Commander Tlaka and Commander Tsani at Fixback Border Gate. I learned to complain. They were happy that I reported that. But following the investigations, Commander Tlaka wrote to me and said officials was well within their rights. Was executing his job. And I said, how can a person travel with me? What have to clean my puke, not knowing whether I'm sick, I'm having transferable disease. So I want to ask him, that the commissioner, that the Masiap, is that your policy? Is that how you treat people while crossing, while they are sick? Is that how Fixback Border Gate, or in general, the border gate in South Africa do things? And if that is not the case, and I want you to know, I want you to tell me what you are going to do about it.
Okay, Khojane, thanks for that question. Sorry about the experience that you had. Dr. Masiapato?
Yeah, no, thanks, Cathy. Yeah, maybe exactly as you say, Cathy, is just to be sorry for the experience of Khojane, because what happens is we have what we call port health specialists in the port. So if any traveler experiences any kind of symptoms of sickness or anything, they are supposed to be attended to by the well-trained individuals who deals with, with sick people, and those are our port health, officials. And by the way, we also have your makeshift kind of a sick bay in a port environment where we are able to attend to all the travelers. And of course, if there is a need for that particular person to be taken to the nearest health facility, we also do that facilitation. We have agreements with all of the facilities. If it was in Fitzburg, definitely we have an agreement with the health facility around Fitzburg. So I wouldn't necessarily understand why the port health specialist was not brought into the environment to be able to attend to yourself. And I think you are right that we escalated it to the managers, the port commanders, who then had to ultimately deal with the situation. But the issue of having to force a sick person to clean the environment on the basis of what happened, I think that was not necessarily supposed to be the case. It cannot be a policy that says that should be the case. The policy is very much clear. Anybody who experiences any kind of health-related issue must be attended by the health experts on the port.
Okay, so that's an issue that you can look into. We'll get you in touch with Khojane. Ernest wants to know whether you now have an employment equity plan in place.
Yes, indeed. We have an employment equity plan in place. Unfortunately, we are not even able to do much about employment, primarily because we have no funds for it. And that is why the last recruitment we had was in 2023 when we did the 400 border guards. And that is why we are actually waiting for some funding.
So you haven't employed anybody new since you were established?
No, remember we did the 200 in 2022 and we did the 400 in 2023.
Yes.
And that was in terms of the border law enforcement team. And otherwise, after that, it was just basic people in the back office, but not in the front line. So that is the reality, Cathy.
Sure. It's a very stark reality. Hasmukh wants to know about your officials that have been caught for corruption. How many?
Yeah, no, I mean, just in the last quarter that we reported on, we had about 9 officials that were fired because they were caught, doing corruption, as it were. But as we speak, we talk about almost 50 or so that are going through different levels of disciplinary. Others are also going through the court systems where fraud was actually identified. The Hawks are dealing with those particular cases. So effectively, I can confirm that we are definitely cleaning the system and be able to identify individuals that are caught doing the wrong things. A lot of issues that we are doing on corruption, Cathy, is just that we don't have time to start mapping out all of those interventions. But we are very much serious to make sure there's no corruption.
It is, of course, very concerning given the fact that you're a new entity. And when you look at, I guess, the numbers overall, that is quite alarming.
But maybe, Cathy, let me indicate something. We are a new entity, but we integrated officials that have been doing this work. So that's the only difference. That is why we say we are cleaning the system and
so
make sure that
some
we
of the
retain.
officials, let's say, that came from Home Affairs, they've been corrupt, and you are discovering this corruption under the BMA. So you're doing maybe what the other entities failed to do.
Exactly. That is why, let me give a typical example, Cathy. I know that you are running out of time. There's one of the women that we intercepted, and her issue actually even was in the news, in Beitbridge, that actually had to be arrested. As we speak now, I mean, I'm told I think it's tomorrow or so, she's going through the court system there in Musina. So the team is going there to be able to do the witnessing and all of that. So people were saying, but BMA is 2 months old. Why do they employ a 63-year-old individual? No, those are the colleagues that we intercepted from the department. And ultimately, once they are found to be doing wrong stuff, we are cleaning the organization. So that is why we are looking for additional money to bring the new blood into the organization, new young fellows in the organization that are more energized with positive thinking, with patriotic thinking and all of that going forward.
Yeah, it sounds to me that part of what is also happening is that you're inheriting headaches from other departments, but that's just my own reading of the situation. Thanks for your time, Dr. Masia Pato, Commissioner of the Border Management Authority. Time for your latest news update.
Thank you, Cathy. On the top stories, Ria Vaya bus on strike and academic activities have come to a halt at Mdantsane School. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good morning. Ria Vaya bus commuters in Orlando East, Soweto are stranded due to a strike by bus operators, with the reason behind the strike still unknown. Affected commuters, speaking to SABC reporter Calvin Dludla, reported having to seek alternative transportation, which is inconvenient, especially since they had purchased monthly bus tickets. The duration of the Ria Vaya strike remains unclear.
We don't know how long will this last. You would know that there have been some disputes when it comes to Ria Vaya bus services issues. You would understand that even last year there was a strike. In most cases, it's either that is related to taxi violence that sometimes takes place here between taxi associations, Yowata and Nandue, or others. Other issues would be your wage disputes. So up until we get hold of their communications unit, then we'll be able to explain or elaborate more on how long will this last.
A 19-year-old student at the University of Stellenbosch has been found dead in his residence. Acting Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Learning and Teaching, Professor Richard Stevens, says the second-year student was found over the weekend. He says no foul play is suspected and forensic services are yet to determine the cause of death. Stevens says counselling is being provided to students at the residence. He has sent condolences to family and friends.
The passing of a cherished young life leaves a deep and lasting ache within our university community, and it is with heavy hearts that we mourn alongside the family and friends. I want to assure the family that they have the support of the Stellenbosch University community. Our thoughts are also with the students' friends, including those in the Dagbreek residence and his classmates.
Save the Children South Africa is concerned about toddlers being coerced into using drugs in communities. A woman will appear in the Johannesburg Regional Court today on charges of attempted murder and drug abuse after a video went viral showing her offering her 4-year-old son a smoke from a Mandrix pipe. 3 others have also been charged in the case. Child protection lead at Save the Children, Margaret Zulu, says communities need to report suspicious behavior if they think a child is being subjected to drug abuse.
This is not only a breach of the child's right to protection from harm, as outlined in the Children's Act, as you know, but also a reminder of the urgent need for stronger community vigilance, support system for vulnerable families, and also enforcement of child protection laws.
Academic activities have come to a halt at David Mama Senior Secondary School in Mdantsane in the Eastern Cape. This follows a bullying incident of an 18-year-old pupil inside the bus used to ferry learners. The video and the assault incident went viral on social media. The scholar transport operator has since been suspended following the incident. Parents are demanding action to be taken against the perpetrators. Community activist Andy Lesiko has called for justice.
Unfortunately, today is not a normal day. What happened is not normal. We cannot treat it normally. They can never be teaching and learning in the school until justice is served. That girl deserves justice. We're not going to be peaceful. We are not going to stop. We're not to be quiet until she gets the justice she deserves.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has emphasized the need to build South Africa's resilience within the international trading system. In his letter to the nation today, Ramaphosa focused on interventions that government is putting in place to mitigate the impact of the decision by the United States to impose 30% tariffs on South African imports last week. He says the country cannot afford to be complacent in the face of increasingly turbulent headwinds and must adapt. Busibupela reports.
An export support desk to assist producers affected by U.S. tariffs has been established by government to guide with expansion into new markets, including the rest of Africa, Asia and the Middle East. The president adds that such companies will also be eligible to receive a support package, the modalities of which will be communicated in due course. Ramaphosa says that in the coming months, the National Exporter Development Program, aimed at growing the pool of export-ready companies, will be scaled up. All this while continuing to engage the U.S. for mutually beneficial trade and investment relations. Busibopela, SABC News.
Recapping the top story, Ria Vaya bus commuters in Orlando East, Soweto are stranded due to a strike by bus operators, with the reason behind the strike still unknown. I'm Lambana for SAFM News Headlines at 11:30.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Uganda cranes have a huge responsibility to accelerate their fans on home soil. Meanwhile, the Desert Foxes believe they will prevail away from home. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Catch Uganda versus Algeria this Monday, 4 August at 7 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Hi, good morning, Cathy. I used 2 ports of entry. I used the Libombo one and I used the Oshuk one to do the line of work that I do. I just wanted to say to the commissioner, I watched his press briefing yesterday, and I think that he's doing a great job, Cathy. I think you're a bit hard on him, a bit, but yeah, these issues have been there for decades and decades, and they are a 26-month-old organization. I just want to say thank you to him. I do see, because I use Libombo and I use Oshuk, and their staff members are very visible, very, very helpful. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. Our people need to understand that being illegal in another country, you are there at your own risk, and you pose a threat to the security of that country. Because people were shot and killed every day, people were stabbed and killed every day. We don't know who killed these people. You die in a foreign country illegally, being illegally there, you are likely to be buried there as a prepared, because nobody will know you, and no fingerprint will match you. You are there at your own risk. You cannot access any medical help because they will need your identity or your passport or whatsoever. People, please go back home and sort your paper and come back legally. Simple.
Hey, Cathy, great show. My gripe this morning is Penyasa Lesufi has now recycled his HODs. It's the same people who has caused such a lot of problems and incompetent, messing up our beautiful cities, and yet they are there again. Sure, the ANC has nothing to give. Wherever the ANC rule, there is a mess. Shame on you, Penyasa Lesufi, and the ANC.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Mbongo, Sonisa. Yeah. Sis Cathy, Solema Paila is a bitter man. The gentleman, since he's been bitter before the election, even now it's the very same thing. He just wants to become a minister. Why are they not giving him a position in the cabinet? The gentleman, you can tell he's power hungry, man. Just retire, man. Go and enjoy with your grandchildren at home. Instead of like just causing chaos left and right. He is so eager to get a position in the cabinet. Wow. Thank you.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Three people, one of them's a mother, they've been arrested after a viral video surfaced. And what did it do? It showed the mother not just using this drug-laced glass pipe. According to that video evidence, she then appeared to light and hand over and get the child to smoke as well. It is like almost unthinkable.
Well, it's not even unthinkable. It's inconceivable. It's an enigma. One cannot understand how a biological mother can subject her child to this gross form of violence and violation. It constitutes physical abuse.
Dr. Shaida Omar, Clinical Director at the Teddy Bear Foundation.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
You're listening to the Talking Point. Welcome to the third and final hour of the show. As part of our Women's Month's coverage and celebrations, we'll be bringing you some of the courageous work and careers that women are involved in. You'd remember, it's 69 years since the 1956 March by Women from different race groups to the union buildings in protest against past laws and various other injustices. So 69 years ago, it would have been unfathomable for women to be in some of the careers that we're going to be highlighting. Today we start off with conservation and looking at women who are in fields around the conservation sector. Let me invite Lesego Mthethwa, who's field officer with the Endangered Wildlife Trust Carnivore Conservation Program. She works largely in the Kruger areas of Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Lesego, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Nkazimlo Mafa is a project manager in the Threatened Endangered Species Unit within the Endangered Wildlife Trust Urban Ecology. Nongazmulo, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy.
And Dr. Lara Fuller is a Drakensberg project coordinator for the Endangered Wildlife Trust African Crane Conservation Program. Dr. Fuller, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Lesego, let's start with you. Tell us more about what exactly it is that you do on a day-to-day basis and what drew you into this career.
Oh, I get asked that question quite a lot. And to be honest with you, Cathy, I don't even know what a day in my life looks like because I could be doing literally anything. I like to tell people that I let the bush decide my schedule because at the end of the day, my main focus of work is lion monitoring. So nature is one thing you can never control, and you just have to wait for nature to tell you what you need to do, and then you head out.
Well, that's very broad.
Yeah.
Waiting for nature to tell you what to do. Add a bit more context to it. When you're out then in nature, what do you do?
Yeah. So normally if I am heading into Kruger to do lion monitoring, then I spend a few days in the park and I camp. And we normally work at night because lions are nocturnal animals. So the best time to catch lion is during the night. So then I will prepare my lunch and all my equipment and then head out as all the tourists are heading back into camp. And then I will meet up with the section ranger and the vets, and that's when we will head into the field and go catch some lions.
You catch them for what? Why are you catching the lions? Why are the lions not being left in their natural habitat and environment?
So they are in the natural environment, but due to the high threats and risks that are upon lions, from the illegal wildlife trade to poaching and poisoning, then it is essential for us to put GPS and VHF collars, which helps us track their movements so we know where exactly they are moving. And if they do move into high risk areas, then we are able to intervene in time before they get poached.
How many lions are we talking here, Lesego?
I cannot share that information currently
Oh,
because
okay.
we recently
Security.
finished. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Okay. So, when you decided that this is what you were going to sign up for, that this is just what you're going to do, what drew you into the career? Did you grow up in that side of the world? You know, was nature always all around you, or did something else spark it?
So I grew up in Nelspruit, which is known as Mbombela now in Mpumalanga, and that is extremely close to the Kruger Park. So every school holiday, my parents would take us to the Kruger National Park, and that is where my love for nature came to play.
That makes complete sense to me. In fact, a lot of rangers I've spoken to will talk about how they grew up being exposed to the environment. So I think the
Yeah.
exposure element of it is quite big. Yeah, that's all for the city moms and dads, hey? Expose your kids to the
Yes.
wildlife. Expose them to the wildlife so that if they create, or if they end up following, a curiosity in that area, then they're able to fully get into it. Nonga Zimlo, tell us a bit about the work that you do as a project manager, and you're dealing particularly with endangered species.
Yes, on a daily basis, what we do, we're working with the wetlands. We are currently based in Durban, in Adams Mission. It's one of the wetlands that are still intact in the Durban area. So it's about 455 hectares. On a daily basis, we are actually working with alien invasive plants clearing and also making sure that the wetlands are clean. We do waste management and also talking with the community on a daily basis, just to let them know how they can keep their wetlands clean in order to make sure that the threatened species that are found in their wetlands are still in a good condition.
If we are talking about invasive alien plants, waste management, let's start with the invasive alien plants, perhaps. Often, for ordinary communities, this is not something that people can manage on their own. So does your work include going into the areas and identifying these invasive plants and then beginning to educate communities around it?
Yes, we have experienced staff on the ground that are dealing with identification of the alien plants and also finding ways of how to deal or maybe steering the alien plants. And also we make sure that we employ local people just to make sure that they are also aware and have the knowledge about the alien plants found in their area. We employ them and train them so that they can be able to eradicate the alien plants that are found in the area. As for the local community, we teach them, we do the awarenesses, we do your door-to-door awarenesses, making sure that they learn and know about these alien plants and the dangers that are posing on the wetlands.
Yeah, one of the things that we see is that sometimes they reproduce quite rapidly. What's behind that?
It's their nature, and also the fact that plants will go to areas where there is water flowing streams. So if the seeds, maybe the neighbor upstream is not clearing, even if I'm clearing downstream, I'll still get like regrowth and infestation all over, just because the seeds are very they dormant at certain to move to one area to another, and then they can germinate, and then you'll find that they actually spread rapidly. So it needs a collective engagement or initiative of clearing the alien plants. So yeah, that's the main challenge that we have on the ground.
What drew you into this career, Nonkazimlo?
Okay, as a young girl, I grew up in Zimkulu in a rural area. So my passion came in the sense that I actually wanted to see community development, and also wanted to see people in their own village appreciating their land and making sure they are making good use of their land. So that's where it actually grew, the passion of doing rural development and also nature conservation. That's where my passion came from. So the fact that I interact with rural communities, teaching them of how to take care of their good nature and also take care of their land. So that's actually what sparks my interest, and also just to give knowledge to the people that are not known or historically been privileged to have access to such nature conservation practices.
Laura, let me come to you. You are a specialist when it comes to crane conservation. You're the project coordinator for the Crane Conservation Program in the Drakensberg. Tell us more about the work that you do.
Thanks for this opportunity. Yes, we work in a complex landscape, and cranes live basically all over the landscape, in farmlands, nature reserves, but primarily in private lands, but also in communal lands. So as the Drakensberg project, we have an incredibly complex environment to work in, because the birds fly, and so they can be anywhere. So a lot of what I do involves convening people, bringing people together to talk about situations, listening to people, supporting other team members who are specialists in different areas, such as wetlands expertise, working communities expertise. And then I have, yes, as you mentioned, species population expertise. So we're sort of trying to bring together a landscape approach for the cranes, but also improving natural resource management across the landscape through all people, would sum up. It's quite complicated.
And why cranes in particular?
So I, bizarrely, actually used to work in zoos, and I actually left zoos to do a PhD in wattle cranes, and that's how I had sort of focused down into cranes specifically. But I'd worked with birds within the zoological environment, and so it naturally progressed into a PhD, which was doing research on a species that at the time was critically endangered, the wattle crane regionally, which has now fortunately dropped down to endangered, primarily because of all the good work landowners and farmers do for them. But yes, that's kind of how I came to have this job.
I'm just thinking about it, that if you're going through the Sunday papers, or any newspaper, at least before we saw the the slowdown and the impact of the print media and sort of what it has gone through. If you're going through the career section, you're not necessarily going to find posts or adverts there for a specialized crane project coordinator, or even a specialist invasive alien plant individual needed. These are very, very niche careers. And I wonder how you as women are then finding your own space within these careers, as they also are predominantly very male dominated, Lesego?
Yes. Yes, indeed, it is true. And there is a huge gap for women to enter the space. So that is why I think there are more opportunities and there are vast options you could have. Like for me personally, I did not know I was going to be a field officer. And when EWT had the option at hand, you kind of get a sense of how it's not just a specific job like being a ranger or a vet, but then there are more opportunities taking place in conservation that you can get.
How do people expose themselves to these careers, Nonkazimlo?
A lot of people, I don't want to lie to you, are not exactly exposed to the careers as yet. For example, even myself, growing up in a village, I did not know there was such careers within the nature conservation sector. But as the youth, or I would say as young people get into the space, it's clearly studying nature conservation, and also just making sure that we are, as the organization, we are engaging with the schools, just to make sure that the kids are aware of the jobs or the careers within the nature conservation.
Absolutely. And for you, Laura?
I think the truth of the matter is to stick to your passions. If you look at the world around you and you enjoy it and appreciate it, then keep learning about it. Because keeping that drive going, your passion going in that space, you'll find the same people like you. And that develops a network. And once you have a network, then you can work more in that space.
Yeah, look, I'm also certain that being in careers of this kind also have their own challenges, and I wonder if those, if there's specific challenges that are unique to the women, and we'll find out when we continue this conversation shortly. If you want to call in, you're more than welcome to do that too. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. We're spotlighting some of the women in conservation who are tackling careers that, as I mentioned, 69 years ago would have been unheard of, unthinkable for women to be in these kind of careers. But certainly now it is possible, and we have to expose ourselves to the fullness of the possibilities. It's 11:30, time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines, the International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola says South African exports do not compete with nor pose a threat to U.S. producers. South Africa is responding to U.S. tariffs with a comprehensive plan. Rea Vaya bus commuters in Orlando East, Soweto are stranded due to a strike by bus operators, with the reason behind the strike still unknown. And the Basotho Covenant Movement Malatana says they only hope to reclaim their land in parts of South Africa that belongs to Lesotho. Last month, Lesotho security chiefs claimed the group is recruiting and training Basotho youth for terrorism purposes. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Dumelang Mzansi, welcome to the Health Club. This is where we unpack the issues that affect our health, your well-being and your everyday life.
Arthritis, high blood.
Losing your health is an event that is not predictable.
Organized crime syndicates have infiltrated our healthcare system and has cost the country billions of rands.
Claims that are fraudulent could be anything between 5 to 15%.
I'm your host, Clement Manyatela. This is the Health Club.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
3 people, one of them's a mother, they've been arrested after a viral video surfaced. And what did it do? It showed the mother not just using this drug-laced glass pipe. According to that video evidence, she then appeared to light and hand over and get the child to smoke as well. It is like almost unthinkable.
Well, it's not even unthinkable. It's inconceivable. It's an enigma. One cannot understand how a biological mother can subject her child to this gross form of violence and violation. It constitutes physical abuse.
Dr. Shaida Omar, Clinical Director at the Teddy Bear Foundation.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point, looking at women in conservation. Our guest today, Lesego Mthethwa, a field officer with the Endangered Wildlife Trust Carnivore conservation program. Nonkazimlo Mafa is a project manager with the Threatened Endangered Species Unit, and Dr. Laura Fuller is the Drakensberg coordinator for the African Crane Conservation Program, all of them with the Endangered Wildlife Trust. So, Lesego, I want you to speak to me about some of the challenges that you deal with in your industry, and if any of those challenges are also unique to you being a woman.
So yes, there are a couple of challenges. Some are quite minor, but the main challenge I have as a female is driving the 4x4 cars, and that is because I am quite short, so I'm like 4'11", so I can't see the dashboards nicely, so then I sit on pillows just so I can see. And because the cars are made so big to accommodate obviously tall men, and then you have young short girls like me where we have to kind of adjust to that. And also I think our voices aren't heard sometimes because it's such a male dominated field, and because I do a lot of physical field activities, then men tend to think that I'm not capable of doing it because I'm a woman. But then, I mean, I knew what I was signing up for, so obviously I would make sure that I'm physically fit to do whatever the men are doing. And there's also that stigma where women are too emotional and we can't make decisions. So that's one of the challenges that I see faced.
Yeah, as you're speaking, Lesego, I can just see your pillows stacked up
yeah,
on top of each other. Just high enough to give you range, but low enough to make sure you can still access your pedals, right?
Yeah, and I recently found out that you can actually adjust the steering wheel because the steering wheel was also quite high, so then it was like nearly hitting my face. So when I found that out, I was extremely happy. So it's like also those minor things that are not a big problem, but are a problem as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's by design, right? Is that the people who design these vehicles never had a woman in mind. It was always supposed to be a tall, probably quite brawny male who would be the one behind the seat. But in as far as then also establishing your voice and making sure that you're respected by your peers, how do you go about navigating that? Because I imagine, you know, when you're walking into a field that is predominantly male dominated, there's male speak amongst the men, and they never quite realize that, well, they're not just the only ones now, and sometimes you can get caught up in that and can get disadvantaged by that.
Yeah. So I think the main thing that I have learned and I've been told is that I need to speak up more. And obviously, it is quite difficult because when you come in, you automatically get that feeling that, okay, I'm the only woman. I just need to keep quiet and listen to what they're saying. But then that even makes you more inferior and they don't notice you. But then if you start speaking up more, then it's that instant thing where it's like, okay, there's someone in the room and it's a woman and let's hear what she has to say.
Absolutely. You've got to continue to fight for that space and fight for that recognition. Nonkazimlo, what would you say are your experiences with some of the challenges you faced in your own line of work?
Yes, some of the challenges, I would say it affects mostly all of us, but for women, then it becomes like 2 times more compared to to men. In our space, as we're working with rural communities, we know that there are times, or maybe there are certain protocols that need to be observed when you're addressing the royal families, where we meet with the chiefs and Izinduna, you have to dress in a certain way. So with the work that we do, you find that it doesn't really accommodate at times you wearing a skirt. So you have to be in your jeans or in trousers sometimes. The traditional authority would not really accept that. It depends with each area. And at some point, you as a woman addressing men, so you kind of need to go an extra mile as a woman before you go into a community and try to engage with them, just trying to understand what's the culture and how can you behave yourself as a woman or show up in those settings as a woman. And also another point would be in terms of the work that we do, the work that we do, sometimes it becomes really physical, where you have to walk at such long distances. At times when you're taking, for example, some samples, you have to dig. So yeah, it becomes challenging in that way. But yeah, I would say it just needs you as a woman to understand that yes, there are certain tasks that you can perform that some are just a bit extreme.
Yes, so that means that most of you are incredibly fit to be able to do these jobs. But Nonkazimlo, I'm very interested by what you've just shared. When having to interact with your tribal authorities on a personal level, they of course can be very harsh. So if you're not wearing a dok, if you're not wearing a dress, or you're wearing a dress but your dress is not, less than 4 centimeters below the knees, sometimes some of them want them literally, they want it dragging on the floor, right? Otherwise you'll get fined. Those are experiences that women are subjected to, but on a personal level. I didn't know that even as a professional who is carrying out a professional responsibility, that as a woman, somebody like you then would also be expected to subscribe to that kind of authority or regime or whatever it is that you want to call it, because you're there as a professional, not in your personal capacity.
Yes, it happens. So that is why it's very much important for you, as I've mentioned, that you need to go there first before any professional gathering, and just to find out how does the community behave, what is expected of you, just to understand what is really expected of you, to how are you really expected to look in front of those gatherings. Some do understand, some it takes time, it differs. So the areas that we work in, are so different. Some they accept us, some you just need to understand each community and treat each community differently and try to understand how do they operate.
Okay. Laura, your own experience with this and challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think I share the same challenges that have been spoken about. And I think, you know, we live in a very diverse world, which we love. And we have to respect the cultures. And in relation to tribal authorities, I do sometimes just carry a wraparound skirt with me. So I'll go from field work into a wraparound skirt if that's necessary. So I think it's just respecting the cultures where we are. You know, some cultures won't even acknowledge or shake my hand. I've been in that situation because I'm a woman. So, I mean, I think over the long term, I just think about the long-term relationships. We've got to be patient and carry ourselves with grace and just make sure we are respecting ourselves throughout everything.
For other women, maybe even young girls that are listening to this conversation, what would you want them to know about the type of careers that you guys have chosen for yourselves, and maybe even for those who might be thinking about it? What would you say to encourage them to look further into it, Lara?
Absolutely. I think if you are fascinated by the beauty around you, you must follow your heart and your passion. I think it is vital for our own well-being that we do that. And although it's hard, I think it's worth the fight.
Nkazimlo?
Yes, I would say if you want to get in those careers, you just need sometimes to be more open and be willing to learn new things, because nature conservation is so broad, and you can't say I only focus on this specific section or topic, but you need to understand quite a lot of what is going on your wetlands. There's indigenous plants, there's alien plants, there is amphibians that you find there. So you need to be more open, learn more, and be willing to actually be just not just be specific and know one thing, but be approachable and be willing to learn and be a people's person. Because engaging with people sometimes needs you to actually understand that you have to adjust and try to be in a way that you can be able to negotiate with the people and understand to their level. Sometimes you go to a community, so you must talk and understand them to their level. Sometimes you have to deal with like professionals. Then now you have to change and actually be able to engage with different groups of people and also different topics within the nature conservation sector.
All right. Lisego?
Well, Laura and Ninka said quite a bit, but I agree with them. And also to never give up. I think that's the most important thing, because conservation is broad, so you need to be open-minded as well. But also it can be challenging sometimes and test you mentally, physically, emotionally. So you need to not give up and to keep going and to always follow your heart. Whatever is in your heart and whatever you love is what will carry on pushing you and what carries us, what keeps us going.
Let me thank you for coming onto the show and just for sharing this aspect of your lives with us. I certainly walk away being a little bit more enriched about the conservation sector. I hope it's the same for our listeners out there. That's where we leave it for today on The Talking Point. Up next is the book reading. Show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
SFM's award-winning drama department presents another episode of the book, A Testament of Hope, the autobiography of Dr. Sam Motswenyane. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
The African Bank initiative was given very wide publicity throughout South Africa. In Natal, the most effective organizer for the bank was Mr. P.G. Gumede, the vice president of NAFCOC. For a very long time, he was my right-hand man. Mr. Gumede made his strong appeals in isiZulu on radio, and in this way possibly touched the hearts of many people. One day, when I went to the Barclays branch at Church Street to see what progress we were making with the collection of funds for the bank, I found an old man there. This old man was saying in isiZulu, "I want to see Gumede. I've already heard that a bank was being established here and that we need to deposit 100 rand into the account to establish the African Bank. This is a wonderful idea. I don't have much money, but I only have 100 rand that I would like to put into that account. Probably I will not benefit directly from such an investment, but my children and grandchildren will. This is like planting a tree whose shade I will never enjoy, but my grandchildren will." The old man, whose name I can no longer remember, truly moved me. I then told him that Gumede was in Natal and was not in Pretoria. He confirmed that Gumede's message was right and that he would promptly invest his 100 rand in the NAFCOC bank collection account. However, this project only significantly gained momentum after 1972, when I had the opportunity to join a black business tour group going to Europe and England. While in London, I requested to see the then chairman of Barclays Bank, Sir Anthony Keith. He was gracious enough to let us have lunch with him. A few NAFCOC members from the tour group accompanied me to have lunch with Sir Anthony Keith. Among the guests present at the luncheon was the manager of Barclays Bank, Johannesburg, Mr. Frank Dowling, whom I did not expect to see in London. Prior to having lunch, Sir Anthony warmly welcomed our delegation to London. I subsequently stood up to express our appreciation for being hosted to lunch by Barclays Bank, but at the same time, I took a very presumptuous position by pointing out to Sir Anthony Keith that his bank owed us money. I said, "With all due respect, I would like to start off by saying your bank owes us something. It owes my country. It owes my people. Yes, your bank owes us something." Barclays Bank has been operating successfully in South Africa for a long time. It is my people who have contributed towards making Barclays Bank what it is. The substantial support that you have received from the black people in South Africa is undoubtedly what has made it so successful. I believe that at this juncture, it is time for your bank to turn around and see what it is that it can do to help promote the project we have embarked upon for the establishment of the African Bank in South Africa. This is our dream. Some research has been conducted on the project and has identified some of our major shortcomings as lack of capital, lack of management skills, as well as lack of trust and credibility. Your bank's reputation, with all its abundant resources and skills at its disposal, can enable you to make some contribution towards the establishment of our proposed African Bank. I would like to ask what it is that you can do to help. When Sir Anthony Keith stood up to respond, he surprised me by confirming that, yes, of course, we do owe you something and the bank is prepared to make some contribution. First, we can offer training to your people to develop their required managerial skills. If it cannot be done in South Africa, it will be done elsewhere in our branches in Nigeria. We can, in addition, also contribute some capital because your biggest problem is to raise capital. We can render assistance towards the establishment of your bank once you have agreed amongst yourselves and secured the necessary government approval. I was extremely delighted that the chairman of Barclays Bank had given such a very positive pledge of support to the African Bank project. After that lunch in London, I came back to South Africa full of hope and excitement to report to my organization. The whole atmosphere of non-belief in the project changed significantly in a very positive direction. People who initially viewed the African Bank idea with skepticism began to say, if Barclays Bank is prepared to assist and join the project, then there must be something good in it. The former skeptics now began to show support towards the African Bank project. The pledge of support by Barclays Bank was instrumental in influencing the thinking and changing the negative attitude about the proposed African Bank. But the project still had another hurdle to surmount. NAFCOC needed to convince the nationalist government of the day that it was important for an African bank to be established. An incident that took place at the World Bank meeting in Kenya in 1973 could have contributed to the ultimate granting of permission for the bank to be established. While visiting the United States in 1973, I decided to make contact with the African Development Bank in Abidjan, which had been created by the Organization of African Unity in 1963 without South Africa. I wanted to see how I might benefit from their experience. The bank operated from Abidjan in the Ivory Coast, where its headquarters were located. I made an attempt while in the USA also to visit the African Development Bank and managed to secure a visa to go to the Ivory Coast. As African countries did not accept visas issued by South Africa, I had to obtain one via another country. At that time, one had to know certain people in order to circumvent all sorts of bureaucratic complications and consular requirements in various countries. When I reached the Ivory Coast, I sought an appointment with the head of the African Development Bank in order to solicit from him some advice on how to get the African Bank started here in South Africa. I, however, got a terrible rebuff on my arrival. I landed in Abidjan and made my way to the offices of the African Development Bank. When I got there, I introduced myself and showed my business card as president of NAFCOC. The official at the reception also handed me his business card. He, however, told me that I would not be able to see the head of the bank at that moment, but if I came back the following day, I could probably see him. They would arrange that the head of the bank saw me. I went back to my hotel and on the following day returned to the offices of the African Development Bank. But when I got there, the gentleman who had welcomed me and gave me his card the day before demanded that I return it. I, fortunately, still had his card in my pocket, and even though I did not know why he wanted it back, I returned it to him. He then said to me, "Don't ever tell anybody that you have been to this office and that you were received by us. This is an agency of the OAU, and the OAU does not speak to South Africa. We therefore won't let you speak to the head of the bank." Then I said to him, "I'm not representing the government of South Africa. I'm representing the people, the very victims of oppression in South Africa, who are trying to lift their heads and do something for themselves. By doing what you are now doing to me, you are in no way helping us. You are in no way encouraging us. But be that as it may, I will take leave of you, but do know that you have done us a disservice. I speak for the people and not the government." While my journey to Abidjan ended without success, in Kenya I connected with a Professor Paulson, an economist who had previously visited NAFCOC. I asked him to make arrangements for me to attend the annual general meeting of the World Bank as an observer. That was done, and I consequently secured a permit and visa to attend the World Bank AGM in 1973. Every country that is a member of the World Bank has the Minister of Finance as a governor of the bank. The South African Finance Minister, Dr. Nico Diederichs, was then one of the governors of the World Bank. When Dr. Dedricks began to address the conference, he was shocked as all the black people in the room who were opposed to apartheid policy just walked out en masse in protest against the country's system of white domination. South Africa was being ostracized, and this gave me the opportunity at a convenient time during lunch to sit with him and talk about the African Bank. I told Dr. Dedricks that it was about time that the African Bank was allowed to be registered in South Africa. This would probably help soften attitude and legitimate criticism leveled against South Africa, and what had just happened to him may not happen again. When Dr. Dedricks returned to South Africa, he was able to persuade the South African government to grant permission for the African Bank to be registered. I soon got a letter from the government which informed us that the creation of the African Bank would be allowed, but under a number of stipulated conditions. The first condition was that Barclays Bank not be the only partner in the project, but that all 6 major South African banks should be allowed to participate as well. We don't see why it should be Barclays Bank only. The government obviously did not want the local South African banks to be overshadowed by a foreign bank. NAFCOC was forced to accept this condition. The second prerequisite was that the first branch of the proposed bank be located in a homeland. We will not allow this black-controlled bank to start in the white areas. We will, however, consider that for every branch that is established in the homelands, permission be granted to open one in the urban areas. The third condition was that at least 6 homeland governments should support the idea of an African bank.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
It's 12 o'clock on Monday, the 4th of August, 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
we are making significant inroads into new high-growth markets across Asia and the Middle East, including the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia.
Minister of International Relations Ronald Lamola says that South Africa is looking to other markets as the US's 30% tariff hike by Donald Trump takes effect.
They can never be teaching and learning in the school until justice is served. That girl deserves justice. We're not going to be peaceful. We are not going to stop. We're not to be quiet until she gets the justice she deserves.
And a bullying incident of an 18-year-old pupil inside a bus used to ferry learners is being investigated. Coming up in sport.
African Nations Championship continues. South Africa's group in action today, but Bafana wait. And can England beat India? They just need 36 runs in the last day. Should be easy, but maybe not.
We'll find out. John Chirica with those details, second half of the show. In the meantime, let us know what's on your mind. 41391, that's the SMS line number. You'll be charged R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082 692 3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Monday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, here's your latest news with Onde Lambana.
Thank you, Sakina. On the top stories, South Africa responds to the U.S. imposed tariffs and trial of the Lusikisiki massacre underway in Mthatha. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good morning. International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola says South African exports do not compete with nor pose a threat to U.S. producers. South Africa is responding to U.S. tariffs with a comprehensive plan. The 30% tariff recently announced by the Trump administration will take effect this Thursday. Lamola, accompanied by Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Park Stawu, has given an update on South Africa's mitigation measures on the imposition of the tariff on the country's goods by the U.S.
The calculation of U.S.-South Africa trade deficit ignores the substantial U.S. trade surplus in services, as well as the complementary nature of the bilateral trade and investment relations between the two countries. South African exports do not compete with U.S. producers and do not pose a threat to U.S. industry. On the contrary, our exports are crucial inputs that support America's own industrial base. Our agricultural exports are even counter-seasonal, meaning they fill gaps in the U.S. markets, not replace domestic products.
A strike by Ria Vaya bus operators has affected commuters in Orlando East and Soweto. The action has left many stranded as they had to seek alternative transport this morning. The reason for the strike is not known. Angry commuters say the strike is happening after the new tickets for this month. Calvin Lutler reports.
The calculation of U.S.-South Africa trade deficit ignores
the case against a woman and 3 others accused of encouraging a toddler to smoke what is believed to be Mandrax drugs has been postponed to Thursday at the Johannesburg Magistrate Court. In a video that went viral on social media, a 4-year-old boy is seen being urged to light the pipe said to be laced with Mandrax and take several puffs. The group is facing charges of child neglect, child abuse and attempted murder. The accused have been able to secure legal aid for representation in court. Gauteng NPA spokesperson Pindim Jonondwane says the state still needs to verify the residential address of the accused.
We don't have much information about the accused who are before court. You'll recall that amongst the issues that are outstanding in terms of investigation is their profiles. So we will have much information once they've been profiled, their addresses being verified. So the court has given us until Thursday the 7th to finalize such investigation. The accused before court are facing one of attempted murder and another of child abuse.
The trial of the 6 men accused of the Ngobozana massacre is underway at the Mthatha High Court, sitting in the Lusikisiki Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape. A second witness, police officer Yamkela Sodwele, is giving a testimony on how police were called to the murder scene of Gwabagca politician Mncedisi Gijana. The trial was adjourned on Friday after the first witness, Gijana's brother, completed his testimony. This after the firearms used to kill the 18 were linked to the guns used to kill ANC politician in Gwabagca, Mncedisi Gijana. The Basotho Covenant Movement in Malatana says they only hope to reclaim their land in parts of South Africa that belongs to Lesotho. Last month, Lesotho security chiefs claimed the group is recruiting and training Basotho youth for terrorism purposes. The group spokesperson Abdullah Malik Mulapo is denying allegations of setting up illegal military training camps in South Africa.
Our main objective is purely to reclaim the land which, according to the UN resolutions, have been granted to Basotholand indigenous citizens. What is really happening is that our leader, Dr. Tshepo Pholo, who is now being unlawfully incarcerated, went to the United Nations to submit a petition which suggested that there should be a special committee to implement the process of the handing over of the land. And whatever the government is suggesting is just pure fabrication of malicious damage on his character. The Basotho occupied land includes part of the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, and part of the Eastern Cape. The South African government, I'm sure, knows about this matter.
Recapping the top story, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola says South African exports do not compete with nor pose a threat to U.S. producers. South Africa is responding to U.S. tariffs with a comprehensive plan. I am on Delambana for SFM News Headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thanks so much, Ondala. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 7 minutes after 12, and thanks for tuning in to Update at Noon. Now, some of the stories that will bring you updates on quite a few in the courts this afternoon. The Edgar Lungu case, that, of course, will bring you an update on the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, hearing the Zambian government's main application to challenge the final resting place of the former Zambian president, Edgar Lungu. So we've got Sibahle Mota on that story. And then some other court stories as well. A 26-year-old rape and murder accused is set to return to the Khanyisa Magistrates Court for formal bail application. Uhurulkhile Motswatebe was arrested on Tuesday in Morokweng in connection with the alleged rape and murder of a 6-year-old girl, and we'll find out what transpired in court today. And then 4 people accused of the child abuse and attempted murder. You just heard that in the news with Ondelambana, that case being postponed until Thursday. But Sasha Naidu is in Standerton for us in the Magistrates Court there, where a 59-year-old man is set to appear for the possession of child sexual abuse material. He was arrested last week under Operation Bad Vibes, a joint operation between SAPS and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And also the murder trial of 3 men accused of disposing of the remains of 2 women in a pigsty at a farm in Limpopo. That case also back on the court roll this morning. And more than 490 alleged illegal miners who were arrested at the Sheba gold mine in Barberton on Friday. They also expected to appear in the local magistrates court today. And the trial of 6 men charged with the murder of 18 people in Lusigisigi, that continues in court today. And so many other stories as well. And then the Department of Education is set to visit the David Mama High School in Dansane. And this visit follows a video circulating on social media wherein a female learner is being bullied and slapped by some boys. And the department is to institute an investigation into this matter and advise on the action to be taken against the 3 male learners while offering support to the victim. And the Trade, Industry and Competition Minister, Park Stow, and his international relations counterpart, Minister Ronald Lamola, they gave an update on South Africa's efforts on mitigation measures against the imposition of 30% tariffs on South African goods by the United States. So we've clipped some of that and we'll let you in on what was said. Ntebo Mokobo watching the conclusion of the meeting of the ANC as it enters its 4th day, and today, of course, being the last day. Many issues on the table, including tariffs, the GNU, SACP, local government election, and so much more. So Ntebo Mokobo's on that story. And then the National Council of Provinces is set to take proactive steps towards enhancing safety in KwaZulu-Natal through engagement with the Provincial Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Oh, these are just some of the stories, so many more, but let's get the show on the road.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path, over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken? It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out, because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola says that South Africa will continue to engage with the United States despite the current difficulties and uncertainties that they've encountered. He says that South Africa's relations with the United States remain important. He also says that various sectors have historically benefited from duty-free access to U.S. markets under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, which now faces disruption with the 30% tariffs imposed on South Africa. He was speaking earlier at a joint media briefing in Pretoria with the Department of Trade and Industry.
The US is South Africa's third biggest trading partner, with the European Union and China being the first and second largest trading partners. The US accounts for 7.5% of our global exports. Thus, we will continue to engage the US with a view to conclude a deal that advances the interests of both countries. South Africa seeks to conclude deals that promote value addition and industrialization, rather than extractive relations that deprive the country of the ability to beneficiate our mineral wealth by mimicking extractive colonial-era trade relations. South Africa's minimal 0.25% share of total U.S. imports makes the 30% tariffs on our country are inscrutable, especially when these same tariffs have been applied indiscriminately to all U.S. trading partners globally. Moreover, South Africa poses no trade threats to the U.S. economy nor its national security. The calculation of U.S.-South Africa trade deficit ignores the substantial U.S. trade surplus in services, as well as the complementary nature of the bilateral trade and investment relations between the two countries. South African exports do not compete with U.S. producers and do not pose a threat to U.S. industry. On the contrary, our exports are crucial inputs that support America's own industrial base. Our agricultural exports are even counter-seasonal, meaning they fill gaps in the U.S. markets, not replace domestic products. South Africa isn't just a trading partner. We are a major investor in the U.S., with our companies sustaining American jobs. Similarly, over 600 U.S. companies in South Africa contribute to our industrial growth and create employment. Our goal is to preserve and grow this mutual beneficial relationship. Impact of the tariffs. The uncertainty of the new tariffs is already incorporated into economic projections. For example, various economists estimated that it may shave off 0.2% of South Africa's economic growth. The reduction in growth from the 30% tariffs depends on a number of factors, including our ability to find alternative markets.
That was the International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola updating the nation earlier today. Meanwhile, Trade and Industry Minister Park Stow also reiterated that South Africa has always been compliant and committed to mending trade relations, and that still remains the plan.
We continue to engage with the U.S. government, and it is our intention that these negotiations are continued until a point at which we're able to reach a conclusion. And that, I think, is an important statement to make, because I think that the idea that we can get to a point where we just decide that we're not going to talk to any government and we're not going to engage in trade negotiations, I think would be irresponsible for us as a country. And we said this last week. We engaged with the U.S. government that committed and said, look, we need you to wait a little bit, and this was in Angola almost a month ago. Wait a bit, we'll send you a template that's applicable to countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and then you can start the negotiations from there. And this is notwithstanding that we had given our draft framework deal or our proposed framework deal to the US. And we waited for the template. We followed up, and we got to a point where there was an agreement, in fact, that South Africa please sign a confidentiality agreement, which confidentiality agreement would unlock the discussions. We signed the confidentiality agreement. We did not get a signed confidentiality agreement on the other side. We then went back and said, almost on the eve of the tariff announcements, said, look, we've been waiting for the template, we've been waiting for the confidentiality agreement. What do we do now? We are 2 days before the announcement. Well, what do we do now?
And that was the Trade and Industry Minister Park Stow speaking earlier. For some analysis on where we find ourselves now, we're joined by independent economist and associate of the Trade Law Centre, TRALAC, Eckhart Neumann. Thanks so much for your time, Mr. Neumann. Welcome to Update at Noon.
Good afternoon to you. Good to be speaking to you.
So South Africa, from what the ministers are saying, sound as if we're still hopeful that we could still amend trade relations with the United States. How plausible is that?
I think our relationship with the United States, or certainly the current trade negotiations, are such a nature that everything remains on the table until it really falls off the table. And I think certainly these negotiations will be ongoing, and there'll be things going on behind the scenes. We do, in the annex of the executive declaration that was issued by the Trump administration a few days ago, we are listed in an annex of countries where negotiations are included or are going still. So kind of, we haven't been, the door hasn't been completely shut, but certainly, I do have a bit of sympathy for our Ministry of Trade and our Foreign Relations Department. They have done quite a bit, and a lot of it is not in the public arena, and I think one needs to acknowledge that. But I think we are currently facing a 30% duty. I do think that there is still time, even though it's not that much time left, that there will be a change and there will be a revision of that in due course.
Listening to Minister Ronald Lamola there and what he says in terms of perhaps looking at this as an opportunity as well to change some of the things that are possibly, going on at the moment, before he speaks about beneficiation and not just continuing the way things have been done since time immemorial. Do you see that in the same sort of way?
Yes, I think that all of his comments were actually very valid, and I think the whole issue of beneficiation is important. The United States does need South Africa, not one-way traffic, and I think it was also mentioned, services trade. We are buyers of U.S. services, and that Germany has a large trade surplus on the services account. But basically, the way it works is we have to use our leverage, just as the United States has been using its leverage